Chapter 611. Another Life and Death Threshold. Su Moyan's appearance once again caused everyone to reveal looks of surprise. Looking at his face, it was obvious that he wasn't a life and death threshold of the older generation. He was like Gu Zun, Xian Hao, and the Little War Emperor, a heaven's pride that had broken through at a young age. "Who are you?" the Little War Emperor asked coldly, his killing intent surging as he looked at Yi Guqin. "If you attack, I'll accompany you to the end." Su Moyan's tone was cold. He was also a murderous existence. In the tomb of the gods and devils, he had killed more than half of the barbarian race's saints and saintesses. After experiencing such a life and death crisis, Su Moyan was able to use the ancient god's blood to break through to the life and death threshold. Like Gu Zun, he was a great threshold existence. His strength had already surpassed ordinary minor profound martial realm experts. "You." The Little War Emperor's expression was fierce. The conqueror halberd in his hand trembled, as if he couldn't help but attack. But he also felt that Su Moyan was a difficult opponent and wouldn't be defeated so easily. With him stopping him, the Little War Emperor couldn't deal with Yi Guqin. Su Moyan's arrival had indeed attracted some attention and uproar. But even so, Yi Guqin's situation wasn't too good. After all, the label of a barbarian race spy had been placed on him. Coupled with the rumor of LV Qinghan's death, Yi Guqin's current situation wasn't too good. "I didn't expect that there would be a barbarian race spy among the 7 major powers. I suggest that he be executed as a warning to others." Xian Tai of the Limitless Sword sect said coldly, his voice spreading throughout the entire arena. "That's how it should be. At this juncture, we can't allow a spy to cause trouble." Lord Huntian of the Xingyuan Academy said. "Just kill him. The barbarian race must be heartbroken that a 5-crown king has died." Spirit Emperor said casually, his expression calm as he made the decision. Since they had formed an alliance, they naturally stood on the same side. Moreover, they could use this to suppress the sword sect's talon. When Yi Guqin heard this, the corners of his mouth curled up into a cold arc. "Xian Tai, Marquis Huntian, Spirit Emperor, you are all blind. Just based on Zhou Tong's one-sided words, you can casually determine the life and death of others. Are you worthy? Are you worthy?" When Yi Guqin said this, the entire arena fell into a dead silence. Yi Guqin is really crazy. No one can save him today, not even Wind's Sweeping Tower. Ren Tingting, Princess Yuan Shi, and the others shook their heads and looked at Yi Guqin with pity. Yi Guqin's provocation of Grandma Shichuan had already surprised many people. Now, he was directly challenging Xian Tai, Marquis Huntian, and Emperor Ling, 3 divine-dwelling experts. Who gave him the courage? Who could give him the courage to do so? "Yi Guqin, do you really think that Wind's Sweeping Tower can protect you?" Emperor Ling said in a calm tone as his genuine qi surged around him. He was truly enraged. A guy who was like an ant in his eyes actually dared to spout such nonsense. "You guys are really noisy." Yi Guqin looked indifferent. "This kid needs to be taught a lesson. There's no need to say anything. Just kill him." Emperor Yan had a fiery temper. He couldn't help but attack. He stretched out his hand and his genuine qi turned into a flaming palm that grabbed at Yi Guqin. At the same time, Wind's Sweeping Tower also moved. He used his fingers as a sword and the divine wind sword merged into the void. With lightning speed, the divine wind sword cut off the flaming arm. The divine wind sword didn't slow down as it slashed at Emperor Yan's arm. Not good. Emperor Yan's heart skipped a beat as he quickly retreated. He was afraid that he would lose an arm like Xian Tai. "Wind's Sweeping Tower, do you think that I don't exist?" Emperor Ling said coldly. He waved his hand and his genuine qi turned into spiritual qi blades that cut through the void and collided with the divine wind sword. A violent explosion resounded in all directions. The two stopped fighting. "It looks like Wind's Sweeping Tower has recovered from his injuries," some people whispered. "If you dare to attack again, Emperor Yan, this phone guarantees that this phone will cut off one of your arms," even if Emperor Ling tries to stop me. Wind-sweeping tower's tone was calm but firm. Emperor Yan's expression changed slightly, turning somewhat unsightly. Humph. Wind-sweeping tower, your disciple is actually the barbarian race's pentacrown king. If you cover him up, can you bear the consequences? Emperor Ling said coldly. Emperor Ling's words made the surrounding cultivators whisper to each other. Yi Guqin's identity was indeed too sensitive. Wind-sweeping tower remained silent for a while before saying, because he is this Feng's disciple, this Feng trusts him. Feng-sweeping tower stood straight, not showing any fear because of Emperor Ling's words. Yi Guqin saw all this and cupped his hands. Many thanks, Senior Feng. However, this Yi can deal with this matter. Yi Guqin paused for a while before continuing, this is because the true barbarian race's spy is not this Yi but you, Zhou Tong. Yi Guqin's words changed, as if he was condemning Zhou Tong. The moment Yi Guqin said this, everyone was shocked. What? Zhou Tong? What nonsense is this Yi Guqin saying? That's right. How can Zhou Tong be related to the barbarian race's spy? He has not even cultivated totemic power. I think this Yi Guqin is trying to cover it up. He wants to push Zhou Tong into the heart of the storm. Yi Guqin's words undoubtedly caused a huge commotion. TSK. This Yi Guqin is really ridiculous. How can young Master Zhou be a spy? This is really a case of a thief crying thief. Ren Tingting shook her head, finding it extremely ridiculous. Most of the people present felt that Yi Guqin was forced into a dead end and had no choice but to say this. Amongst everyone present, only Zhou Tong himself had a hint of panic faintly flashing through his eyes. Only he knew that Yi Guqin was right. This was because Zhou Tong was secretly in contact with Lei Jiuyou, Lei Jiuming, the Golden Sun Saint, Feng Xiaotian, and the others. However, the only one who knew about this was Bai Zichen. It doesn't matter. I have already killed Bai Zichen with my own hands. Yi Guqin is just desperate. There is no evidence at all. Zhou Tong comforted himself. Yi Guqin seemed to have seen through Zhou Tong. With a faint smile, he said, Zhou Tong, do you think that I can't do anything if you remove the evidence? You. What are you talking about? Don't slander me. Zhou Tong's heart tightened slightly, but he pretended to be calm. Yi Guqin, don't pester me endlessly. If my disciple is really a spy, I will kill him without anyone's help. Ling Huang said righteously. Everyone praised Ling Huang when he said this. Ling Huang indeed had strength of character. On the contrary, Feng Manlu was a little suspicious of protecting his disciple. However, Zhou Tong's legs went soft when he heard this. There was actually a trace of nervousness in his heart. All right, Ling Huang. If you really do that, I will have to admire you. Yi Guqin was confident. So, where is the evidence? Ling Huang said indifferently with a calm face. He believed that Zhou Tong would not do such an outrageous and stupid thing. The rest of the people held their breaths and waited. Could Yi Guqin really produce evidence? Yi Guqin shook his head slightly and said no more. He took out a jade slip. This jade slip could record voices. When he found Bai Zichen, he forced the truth out of him. Then, Bai Zichen went to find Zhou Tong, but he was killed by Zhou Tong. When he saw Yi Guqin take out the jade slip, Zhou Tong's heart almost stopped beating. Yi Guqin inserted his true qi, and Bai Zichen's voice came out. Can you let me live if I tell you the truth? All right, I will tell you. I have been monitoring you from behind. Zhou Tong contacted Lei Jiuming, the Yan Xiao Saint, and the others to kill you, also, Sword Sect Talon. Zhou Tong also planned to contact Lei Jiuyou, the Golden Sun Saint, Feng Xiaotian, and the others to kill them in the valley. Sentence after sentence came out from the jade slip. With every sentence, Zhou Tong's face turned paler. In the end, his face was completely pale. Chapter 6:12. Silence, a deathly silence ensued. Everyone in the arena stared with their eyes wide open. The words that came from the jade slip were simply too shocking. It was simply inconceivable. Secretly colluding with the barbarian race to kill the barbarian race's elites? If he wasn't a spy, what was? If he had plotted against Yiguchin alone, it could be said that it was a personal grudge. However, in the valley, Zhou Tong had planned to kill all the Sword Sect Pagoda's elites. Zhou Tong, so it's you. Yan Wushuang shouted angrily. Her eyes were red as if they were dripping blood. Yan Wushuang had been wondering why they would be surrounded by Lei Jiuyo and the others in the valley when the Sword Sect Pagoda's whereabouts were considered secretive. Now, it was obvious that it was Zhou Tong's plan. It was also Zhou Tong who had told Lei Jiuyo and the others where they were. Zhou Tong, you really deserve to die. Even a girl like Ji Ling was emitting a shocking murderous intent. Zhou Tong was so vicious that he wanted to kill all the elites of the Sword Sect Pagoda's elites. Feng Manlu was also emitting a cold murderous intent. Even with his calm personality, he couldn't help but be angry. Ling Huang, I need an explanation. Feng Manlu's voice was as cold as ice. This, not to mention the others, even Ling Huang's face froze. His calm demeanor was completely broken. He had great confidence in Zhou Tong, which was why he spoke. If Zhou Tong was a spy, he would definitely kill him personally. However, Ling Huang didn't expect Yiguchin to be able to produce evidence. He suddenly turned to look at Zhou Tong. Although he didn't say anything, there was a hint of anger in his eyes. The entire arena was in an uproar because of this drastic turn of events. Impossible, how could young Master Zhou? Ren Tingting's face was pale. She was still confident that Zhou Tong couldn't be a spy and that Yiguchin was just a thief pretending to be a thief. However, at this moment, Yiguchin immediately produced evidence. Ren Tingting felt her cheeks burning as if she had been slapped dozens of times. Zhou Tong, do you have anything else to say? Yiguchin's tone revealed a hint of playfulness. Wasn't Zhou Tong good at scheming? Then Yiguchin would completely defeat Zhou Tong in terms of strategy. He wanted Zhou Tong to lose all standing and reputation, to die in endless humiliation and regret. Zhou Tong felt his mind go blank. He was the most adept at scheming, so much so that he had once looked down on Yiguchin, thinking that he only had strength but no wisdom. But now? Who still dared to say that Yiguchin only knew how to use force to crush others? When did Yiguchin record this? That damned Baizichin. Before coming to find me, he had already told Yiguchin the truth. Zhou Tong's heart was filled with hatred. If he had known earlier, he would have gotten rid of Baizichin sooner. Nothing to say? Yiguchin asked calmly. Yiguchin, who knows if this jade slip of yours is fake? Moreover, Baizichin is also from your Sword Sect's Forest of Towers. Perhaps you colluded with each other to frame me. Zhou Tong's eyes flickered slightly. You're still quibbling. Yan Wushuang and the others were furious. Zhou Tong could still make such an argument in front of such evidence. However, some of the people present came back to their senses and felt that it was unlikely that Zhou Tong would do such a thing. As expected, it was Yiguchin who framed young Master Zhou. Ren Tingting immediately perked up and heaved a sigh of relief. She wanted to see Yiguchin's sorry state when he gave himself away. Yiguchin, I've done the right thing. If you want to know the truth, it's very simple. Let Baizichin come out and confront me. Wouldn't the truth be clear then? Would he dare to come out? Zhou Tong seemed to have found a way and raised his head and puffed out his chest. Find Baizichin. What a joke. Baizichin had been killed by Zhou Tong long ago. Sure enough, after Zhou Tong finished speaking, everyone present also said, then let Baizichin come out. That's right, come out and confront him. On the three imperial palaces' spectator stand, Emperor Ling secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Although he did not know whether Zhou Tong did it or not, he naturally could not kill his disciple with his own hands. Therefore, even if Zhou Tong did it, he could only insist that he did not do it. That's right, Yiguchin. Words are no proof. If you can get Bai Zichen to confront you and tell you the truth, I will naturally not protect him, Emperor Ling said with a righteous expression. These words made the expressions of everyone in the sword sect's forest of pagodas turn ugly. Because Bai Zichen did not return after the ancient desolate forbidden zone, he was most likely dead. Damn it, they're just spouting nonsense. He's already dead, how can there be a confrontation? Yan Wushuang was so angry that her teeth itched and her delicate body trembled. She really wanted to go up and tear Zhou Tong's mouth apart. What's wrong, Yi Guchen? Can't you prove it? Where's Bai Zichen? Zhou Tong smiled and was secretly pleased. In terms of intelligence, if Zhou Tong said that he was second, who would dare to say that he was first? Yi Guchen, you're still far from being able to play tricks with me. Zhou Tong sneered inwardly. He glanced at Yi Guchen, wanting to see Yi Guchen's flustered and exasperated appearance. However, there was no such thing. Yi Guchen's expression was calm from beginning to end, without any anger. Didn't you kill Bai Zichen? Where did the witness come from? Yi Guchen asked in an indifferent tone. Ha, words are no proof. Anyone can slander me like this. Zhou Tong took out his folding fan and waved it lightly, thinking that the outcome was already decided. Yi Guchen, if you still can't prove it, then I'll have to punish you, the barbarian race's 5-crown king. Emperor Ling said indifferently. Zhou Tong, you also said that I killed LV Qinghan with my own hands? Yi Guchen said. What is this Yi Guchen trying to show off now? Zhou Tong thought to himself. However, LV Qinghan was the same as Bai Zichen. She had already been killed by him, so there was no evidence. That's right. I saw with my own eyes that the crimson-armored figure killed senior sister LV. I wanted to help, but I was powerless. Now it seems that the crimson-armored figure was you. Zhou Tong pretended to be angry and sorrowful. As soon as he said this, many hostile gazes landed on Yi Guchen. LV Qinghan was famous for her beauty and she was a nice person. Her death had indeed caused many people to be furious. Now, all of their anger had landed on Yi Guchen. The junior war emperor, Yang Haozong, stared at Yi Guchen with an extremely cold gaze. Yi Guchen felt the hatred and disgust in the eyes of the people around him, but he remained calm. Zhou Tong, I'll ask you one more time. Are you sure that you saw me kill LV Qinghan with your own eyes? Yi Guchen said word by word. I'm sure that I saw it. Why, Yi Guchen, do you still want to deny it? Zhou Tong said firmly. Ah, Zhou Tong, you're finished. Yi Guchen's gaze carried a faint pity. Zhou Tong's heart skipped a beat and his heartbeat accelerated. Everyone, you all heard it. Zhou Tong swore that he saw me kill LV Qinghan with my own hands. Then, Yi Guchen paused. A clear and cold cry that was filled with extreme anger and killing intent came directly from the entrance of the martial arts arena. A beautiful figure in white clothes and black hair walked in step by step. Zhou Tong, LV Qinghan, must have been blind to know such a heartless, disloyal, scheming bastard like you. When these words fell, everyone was dumbfounded. Zhou Tong's expression changed dramatically. His eyes were filled with shock as he looked at the beautiful figure as if he had seen a ghost. He almost suffocated and his heart felt like it was going to explode. LV Qinghan. Chapter 613. Cruel and unscrupulous. Disloyal and unrighteous. A beast with a human face. Scheming. Every single word was like an accusation filled with tears of blood, and it was filled with boundless rage and hatred. This was LV Qinghan's anger. It could be said that she treated Zhou Tong sincerely as a friend. She had even spent a lot of effort to matchmake him and Zither Fairy. Even if she had to offend Yi Guchen because of this, she would not hesitate. But Zhou Tong. What did Zhou Tong repay her? Repay her bone-corroding poison. Repay her merciless and ice-cold palm. Repay her by knocking her down a cliff. LV Qinghan's heart was filled with endless hatred. Even though she was luckily saved by Yi Guqin, the hatred in her heart did not stop. So LV Qinghan swore to destroy Zhou Tong's reputation, humiliating him until he died. Now, LV Qinghan had come, bringing her anger with her for revenge. She wanted to personally tear off Zhou Tong's hypocritical face. Shock. Everyone was shocked. Everyone's eyes were focused on LV Qinghan. Didn't LV Qinghan die at the hands of Five Crown King? How is that possible? It can't be wrong, it's Fairy Qinghan. She's actually still alive, and what did those words mean? Zhou Tong, a beast with a human face, what did he do? Many people were shocked and puzzled. Zhou Tong's news was that LV Qinghan was killed by Five Crown King. Then, who was the person who appeared now? Everyone, I am Consonant's Divine Palace's LV Qinghan. In the desolate ancient forbidden zone, I was framed by Zhou Tong, a beast with a human face, and fell off a cliff. In the end, Five Crown King, Yi Guqin, saved me, allowing me to survive. Following that, LV Qinghan spoke of everything in a short period of time, including how Zhou Tong poisoned her and then knocked her down the cliff with a palm. Of course, the details of how Yi Guqin saved her were only glossed over. When the truth was revealed, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This Zhou Tong was truly too vicious. No, impossible, how could someone like young Master Zhou do such a thing? Ren Tingting's face was pale as she shook her head crazily, unable to believe it. But she also knew LV Qinghan's character. She would never fabricate a lie. So it really is Zhou Tong. LV Qinghan's appearance made Zither Fairy happy. Thinking back to the time when she had misunderstood Yi Guqin in the ancient desolate arena and even had thoughts of revenge, Zither Fairy felt some regret. However, at that time, she didn't know that Yi Guqin was Five Crown King. But what Zither Fairy loathed the most was still Zhou Tong. If it was before, she only felt disgust towards Zhou Tong. But now, he was completely nauseous. It was not only the Zither Fairy. Everyone in the entire arena looked at Zhou Tong with disdain. If the evidence could not be trusted because Bai Zichen was also from the Sword Sect's forest of pagodas. What about now? LV Qinghan was not a member of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest, so there was no need for her to help Yi Guqin slander Zhou Tong. Moreover, LV Qinghan's reputation was widespread. Everyone knew that LV Qinghan was sincere and would not lie. How is this possible? The little war emperor was also dumbfounded. He looked at Zhou Tong in disbelief. But LV Qinghan had appeared in front of everyone, so it was impossible for her to be impersonated. And the little war emperor knew that LV Qinghan would definitely not lie. Zhou Tong, I asked you again and again if you saw me kill LV Qinghan with your own eyes. Or could it be that the current LV Qinghan is also someone that I found to impersonate her? Yi Guqin slowly said. Zhou Tong, you bastard, what else do you have to say? LV Qinghan angrily rebuked. Zhou Tong's breathing almost stopped. As if he had fallen into an ice cave, his entire body shivered. What could he say? What else could he say? With the witness and material evidence, even if Zhou Tong had a glib tongue, he could not say anything. Feeling the cold and disdainful gazes of the tens of thousands of people in the arena and his senior brother Yang Haozang's cold and indifferent expression, Zhou Tong felt a chill in his heart. Master, save me. Suddenly, Zhou Tong fell to his knees with a plop, crying and complaining to the Spirit Emperor. Right now, his only hope was the Soul Emperor. Spirit Emperor was his master and treated him like his own son. Zhou Tong believed that Spirit Emperor would not disregard him. As Zhou Tong knelt down, the entire arena was in an uproar. This practically confirmed that everything was done by Zhou Tong, including Bai Zichen's recording from before. It was also true. This Zhou Tong is indeed a beast with a human face. He's really inhumane, daring to slander Yi Guqin. Although Yi Guqin is the Five Crown King, he did save our lives in the desolate ancient arena. I actually admired this kind of scum before, I was really blind. Some of the young girls who looked up to Zhou Tong also felt a burst of nausea. Zhou Tong's reputation was completely ruined. They believed that in a few days, Zhou Tong's matter would spread across the entire Saint Origin dynasty. He would also be reduced from a top heavens chosen of the hidden chamber of life and death to a scum that everyone cursed. Spirit Emperor's face was incomparably gloomy. Although he had already expected it, he still could not accept it now that the truth was out. Spirit Emperor, what did you say before? If the truth is true, you will clean up the sect and place righteousness before family. Yi Guqin said loudly. The gazes of everyone present all landed on the Spirit Emperor. Spirit Emperor's words were filled with righteousness, which made everyone admire him. Yi Guqin, you. Spirit Emperor's chest heaved up and down, his heart about to explode. Yi Guqin was forcing him to abdicate. Master, please save your disciple. Your disciple was just blinded for a moment and went astray. I will definitely turn over a new leaf in the future. Zhou Tong kept kowtowing, looking very sincere. Spirit Emperor's eyes twitched. How could he really kill Zhou Tong? Zhou Tong was his proudest disciple. Yi Guqin, don't push me too far. Everyone makes mistakes. Spirit Emperor said coldly. As he said this, the eyes of many martial artists were filled with disdain. They thought Spirit Emperor was full of righteousness, but in the end, wasn't he just protecting his disciple? Spirit Emperor's face twitched when he sensed the disdainful gazes. To think that a dignified divine-dwelling expert would have such a disgraceful moment. I agree with Spirit Emperor. Everyone is not a saint. We are at a critical juncture in the war with the barbarian race, and we need talents. I suggest that we let Zhou Tong redeem himself by killing the barbarian race. Grandma Shichuan stood out and said. Everyone was dumbfounded. LV Qinghan was a genius of Consonance Divine Palace. Grandma Shichuan was the Vice Palace Master of Consonance Divine Palace, but not only did she not protect LV Qinghan, but she also protected Zhou Tong, who had framed LV Qinghan. What kind of situation was this? Grandma Shichuan, Zhou Tong wanted to kill Qinghan. If it weren't for Yi Guqin, Qinghan would have been reduced to a pile of bones. LV Qinghan suppressed the anger in her heart and said coldly. Ai, Qinghan, you should spare people whenever possible. Don't tell me you don't even have this much magnanimity. Moreover, Zhou Tong is Zither Fairy's husband. Even if you don't want to give him face, you have to give him face, Grandma Shichuan advised earnestly. What? Grandma Shichuan wants to marry Zither Fairy to Zhou Tong. Everyone was dumbfounded. They thought Grandma Shichuan had lost her mind. Zhou Tong was a vicious man with a human face but a beast's heart. Would Qinghan be happy after marrying him? Grandma Shichuan, you. LV Qinghan raised her eyebrows and trembled all over. Zither Fairy's face turned pale when she heard this. She knew that Grandma Shichuan didn't care about her at all. She only cared about power. Only with Zither Fairy and Zhou Tong's marriage will the four-sect alliance be stabilized. Only then can I borrow the power of the three imperial palaces to completely control Consonance Divine Palace. Grandma Shichuan thought coldly. On the surface, she pretended to be calm and said, I suggest that we continue with the marriage. Zhou Tong, you must turn over a new leaf and treat Zither Fairy well. Of course. Thank you, Grandma Shichuan. Zhou Tong bowed deeply and a smile appeared on his face. Yi Guqin, what do you think? In the end, won't you still have to watch Zither Fairy marry me? And Zither Fairy, you bitch. After you marry me, I'll torture you to death. Zhou Tong raised his head and looked at Yi Guqin provocatively. Spiritual Emperor also breathed a sigh of relief. Since Grandma Shichuan was on his side, the pressure on him had lessened. After all, no matter how angry LV Qinghan was, she was still a disciple of Consonance Divine Palace. She would be restrained by Grandma Shichuan. Sigh, While many people were helplessly shaking their heads, Yi Guqin sighed deeply. You don't want to walk the path of the human world, but you insist on crossing the bridge of helplessness. Today, the arena will be stained with the blood of divine palace experts. Yi Guqin looked coldly at Grandma Shichuan. His words were earth-shattering. Chapter 6:14. Instead of walking on the path of the mortal world, you must cross the bridge. Today, the arena will be stained with the blood of the divine dwelling realm. Yi Guqin's every word was shocking, causing everyone to gasp. Crazy. Too crazy. In the entire younger generation of the Saint Origin Empire, only Yi Guqin dared to speak to a divine dwelling expert with such a tone and attitude. Divine dwelling experts were the top experts of the Saint Origin Empire. Who would dare to speak so presumptuously? But Yi Guqin dared. Little bastard, do you really want to die? Don't you know that a divine dwelling expert cannot be humiliated? Grandma Shichuan coldly roared as her aura erupted. A powerful divine dwelling pressure spread in all directions, suffocating all the surrounding cultivators. Her old face was eerie, and her eyes were so gloomy that it seemed like they would drip water. If not for the fact that Feng Manlu was present, Grandma Shichuan would have torn Yi Guqin apart. In the face of Grandma Shichuan's divine dwelling pressure, Yi Guqin showed no fear. He took a step forward and spoke. Grandma Shichuan, as the Deputy Palace Master of the Consonant's Divine Palace, you are blinded by your desire for power. You want to join the Four-Sect Alliance and take away the Consonant's Divine Palace established by Hundred Flower Child. This is disloyal. As a disciple of the Consonant's Divine Palace, Lu Qinghan was framed by Zhou Tong. As the Deputy Palace Master, not only did you not come forward to protect her, you even protected the main culprit. This is disloyal. Zither Fairy is also a disciple of the Consonant's Divine Palace. You ignored her happiness and forced her to marry Zhou Tong, who has a human face but a beast's heart. This is disloyal. A disloyal, heartless, and unjust person like you has no face to say that a divine dwelling expert cannot be humiliated. You old witch, you are the disgrace of a divine dwelling expert. Yi Guqin's every word was resolute and decisive. His voice was sonorous and powerful as it spread across the entire arena. Shock. Extreme shock. The tens of thousands of cultivators present were dumbfounded. He dared to use such a tone to scold a divine dwelling expert for being disloyal, heartless, and unjust. Yi Guqin was the only one. Some young martial artists felt their blood boiling. When Yi Guqin said that he was unfaithful, Grandma Shichuan's body trembled and her face turned as cold as ice. When Yi Guqin said, heartless, Grandma Shichuan clenched her teeth so hard that they almost shattered. When Yi Guqin said, injustice, Grandma Shichuan's body violently trembled. Then, she couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Grandma Shichuan had been scolded by Yi Guqin to the point of vomiting blood. Die, you little bastard. Granny Shichuan's face was filled with resentment. She was so angry that blood seeped out of the corner of her mouth. How hateful. Grandma Shichuan felt as if the skin on her old face had been peeled off and was dripping with blood. No matter what happened today, Granny Shichuan's name would spread throughout the entire dynasty. Their disloyal, heartless, and unjust faces would also be spread far and wide. Even if Grandma Shichuan were to become the palace master of Consonant's Divine Palace in the future, today's scene would be a stain that she would never be able to erase. Die. There was only one thought in Grandma Shichuan's mind right now, and that was to kill Yi Guqin. Boom. Grandma Shichuan no longer cared about anything else. Not even Feng Manlu could stop the killing intent in her heart. When Grandma Shichuan attacked, Feng Manlu's eyes flashed and his expression turned ice cold. The moment he moved, Ling Huang's gaze locked onto him. Feng Manlu, Yi Guqin has spoken so rudely and insulted a divine dwelling expert today. He won't be able to live. Ling Huang blocked Feng Manlu's path. Sect Master Qin Yang of the Nine Profound Sect, who was on the same side, wanted to intervene. However, Yan Huang, Xian Tai, Marquis Huntian, and the others wouldn't sit idly by. Several divine-dwelling experts stepped forward and released their auras. What's going on? Are they going to start a divine-dwelling battle? Seeing the tense atmosphere, the tens of thousands of cultivators in the arena went into an uproar. Sect Master Yi is in danger now. He's gone too far today. Divine-dwelling experts aren't existences that can be casually provoked. With Ling Huang and the others keeping Feng Manlu in check, no one else could stop Grandma Shichuan. In truth, a divine-dwelling expert wouldn't be so shameless as to attack a junior at the Divine Soul stage in front of so many people. However, Yi Guqin had really infuriated Grandma Shichuan. Even if she didn't care about her face, she still wanted to tear Yi Guqin apart. Little bastard, I'll tear your mouth apart first before sending you to hell. Grandma Shichuan stretched out her hand and pressed down on Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin. Yan Wushuang and the others' expressions changed drastically as they involuntarily cried out. Young Master Yi. Zither Fairy's face also turned pale as her heart twitched. Zhou Tong's lips curled into a carefree smile. He couldn't wait to see Yi Guqin die tragically at Grandma Shichuan's hands. Everyone's gaze was focused on the center of the arena. Many people turned their heads away. They couldn't bear to see Yi Guqin die tragically. Yi Guqin was the only person present who was the calmest. He didn't move at all. He just stood there with his hands behind his back as he watched Grandma Shichuan launch her killing move at him. Boom! The sound of a violent collision spread in all directions. Dust rose into the air as powerful ripples of true energy surged out. The sound of someone vomiting blood could be heard amidst the dust. Sigh, the dignified sword master has fallen in the end. Yi Guqin is truly an amazing talent. Not only is he the sword master, but he's also the Five-Crown King. In the entire empire, he's probably the only one who dares to scold a divine-dwelling expert. He's still too young and too stubborn. The crowd let out a sigh. Ha, Feng Manlu. It seems that it's over. Emperor Ling smiled. Feng Manlu remained silent as he stood there. Ha, he's dead. He's finally dead. Yi Guqin, this is the result of going against me. Zhou Tong was overjoyed. It was as if the humiliation in his heart had lessened. No, impossible. Fairy Zither's body trembled. She didn't believe that Yi Guqin would die. Everyone in the martial arena was in a different mood. Some sighed, some felt pity, and some felt pity. Of course, those who had a grudge against Yi Guqin, such as Queen Yuan Shi and Ren Tingting, were happy. Puchi. Another sound of someone vomiting blood could be heard amidst the dust. A slightly stooped figure was forced back more than a dozen steps and retreated. When everyone's eyes focused on that figure, their faces instantly froze. The figure that had been pushed back was Grandma Shichuan. The corners of her mouth were stained with blood as she stared in horror at the dust cloud. Yi Guqin's cold voice sounded amidst the dust cloud. I said that the arena would be stained with the blood of a divine-dwelling expert, but you didn't believe me. Horror. Everyone's eyes popped out. Grandma Shichuan was a divine-dwelling expert, but she had been pushed back with blood at the corner of her mouth. How is this possible? Zhou Tong turned pale with fright. What's going on? Emperor Ling, Emperor Yan, Xian Tai, and the others were also stunned. As the dust cloud dissipated, everyone's gazes focused. They discovered that apart from Yi Guqin, there was another figure standing in front of him. She was wearing a colorful dress. Her figure was graceful, her skin was like jade, and her face was peerless. However, her stunning face was filled with an incomparably cold killing intent. Song Shichuan, you've disappointed me. Chapter 615. Everyone stared at the peerless beauty that had suddenly appeared in front of Yi Guqin. Everyone's minds went blank. This scene was too dramatic and out of everyone's expectations. Grandma Shichuan was a divine palace expert. She was considered one of the top experts in the entire Saint Origin dynasty. how many people had the ability to force her back and injure her? Moreover, that woman with peerless elegance looked too unfamiliar. The Ling Emperor, Yan Emperor, Xian Tai, and the others looked at the woman. They had no clue who she was. When had such a young divine palace expert appeared in the Saint Origin dynasty? You, who are you? How dare you protect this little bastard? When Grandma Shichuan heard the woman say Song Shichuan's name, her eyes filled with shock and uncertainty. Everyone in the outside world called her Grandma Shichuan. Not many people knew her surname. However, the woman in front of her knew. Grandma Shichuan looked at the woman in front of her with shock. If it weren't for the fact that the woman's appearance was too different, Grandma Shichuan would have thought that the 100 Flowers child had returned. Song Shichuan, you've got guts. This peerless beauty was naturally 100 Flowers. Yi Guqin had previously told her about his plan. He wanted 100 Flowers and the others to hide in the dark and only reveal themselves at the crucial moment. In truth, 100 Flowers had trusted Grandma Shichuan very much. As for Grandma Shichuan, she also pretended to be very loyal and sincere. Because of this, 100 Flowers had been assured to hand the Consonance Palace over to Grandma Shichuan while she went to search for the reversal origin fruit. However, 100 Flowers had never imagined that Grandma Shichuan's benevolent appearance hid such wild ambitions. Grandma Shichuan's ugly appearance today was seen by 100 blossoms in the dark. She was so angry that her teeth itched. LV Qing Han and Zither Fairy were her disciples. However, Grandma Shichuan had persecuted them. She had even ignored her disciples for her own selfish reasons. Killing intent rose in 100 Flowers' heart. Who are you? I have no enmity with you. I just want to deal with this little bastard. Grandma Shichuan's expression was cold. She had sworn to kill Yi Guqin today. However, Bai Hua's unfathomable cultivation made Granny Shichuan wary. Song Shichuan, it's fine that you want the position of Palace Master of Consonance Palace, but how can you be so cruel to your disciples? If you really become the Palace Master, the entire Consonance Palace will be destroyed in your hands. 100 Flowers coldly rebuked. You are. Grandma Shichuan's heart skipped a beat as her eyes slowly widened. Today, I'm going to clean house. 100 Flowers had completely given up on Granny Shichuan. Only by getting rid of her would Consonance Palace be able to restore stability. Your Palace Master. Grandma Shichuan's expression changed drastically. The words Palace Master caused the entire fighting arena to fall into a deathly silence. After which, an endless clamor erupted. What? That woman is the master of the Rhinoceros Divine Palace? Didn't they say that the master of the Rhinoceros Divine Palace, 100 Flowers child, was born sick and resembled a child? Could it have recovered? But how did Yi Guqin get to know 100 Flowers child? Everyone was dumbfounded and revealed looks of disbelief. Phew. Yan Wushuang and the others breathed a deep sigh of relief. No matter what, with the Palace Master of the Rhinoceros Divine Palace here, Yi Guqin was temporarily safe. Zither Fairy also breathed a sigh of relief. No. Zhou Tong's face was pale and his lips were as white as paper. Today, his emotions had fluctuated too much. At first, he had fallen into hell. Then, he saw Yi Guqin fall into death's door. Then, he ascended to heaven. But now, he had fallen into hell once again. This time, it was the deepest abyss. No wonder Yi Guqin's expression was so calm and fearless. It turns out that the Palace Master of the Rhinoceros Divine Palace is protecting him. Zhou Tong's face was pale. He had thought that Yi Guqin's trump card was only 100 Flowers. But Yi Guqin, it's impossible for you to win today. Zhou Tong gritted his teeth. First of all, Grandma Shichuan was a Divine Palace expert and was very difficult to kill. Even Ling Huang and the others could not sit idly by and watch Grandma Shichuan die. No, Palace Master, please listen to this old one's explanation. Grandma Shichuan's face was pale. She might have been arrogant before, but now that she was facing 100 Flowers, she was still afraid. There's no need to explain. Qing Han has already told me everything you've done in the palace. You've suppressed dissidents and monopolized power. Now, you've gone mad and don't care about the lives of your disciples. What use do I have for an ingrate like you? Although 100 Flowers' face was beautiful, it was dignified and cold. Palace Master, this old one only calls you Palace Master out of respect. You and I are both divine palace experts. Even if you're slightly stronger than this old one, you can only suppress me. You can't kill me. If this old one escapes. Grandma Shichuan's eyes were cold. Seeing that there was no way to ease the situation, she might as well throw caution to the wind. Are you threatening me? 100 Flowers' expression hardened. 100 Flowers' child, Grandma Shichuan has always been in charge of Consonant's divine palace. Even if she didn't make any contributions, she still worked hard. Let's not talk about whether or not you can kill her. What you're doing is disheartening. Ling Huang stepped forward. Grandma Shichuan had stepped forward to support Zhou Tong and help him out. Now, Ling Huang naturally had to return the favor and step forward to ease the situation. This is my palace's internal matter. Get lost, Ling Huang. 100 Flowers did not give Ling Huang any face and scolded. You. Ling Huang's face sank. Yan Huang sneered, 100 Flowers' child, your personality is too extreme. You're no longer suitable to be the palace master. I think Grandma Shichuan is a good candidate. Indeed, I also think Grandma Shichuan is suitable. Xian Tai also stepped forward. Everyone was shocked by the support of the 3 divine palace experts. Was Consonant's divine palace going to change masters today? Zither Fairy, LV Qinghan, and most of the Consonant's divine palace disciples who supported 100 Flowers trembled with anger. Since when did outsiders have the right to interfere in the affairs of Consonant's divine palace, let alone decide the palace master's position? Grandma Shichuan seemed to straighten her back when she saw Ling Huang and the others support her. She put on a fake smile and said, 100 Flowers' child, why must we fight to the death? I have a suggestion. Why don't we both become palace masters and each have half of the power? Grandma Shichuan did not even address 100 Flowers' child as palace master. Song Shichuan, you're courting death. Today, I want you dead. No one can stop me. 100 Flowers did not say anything else and directly attacked. Powerful true qi gushed out, and the power of the divine palace shook the world. This is the 6th layer of the divine palace. How is this possible? How did you reach this level? As soon as 100 Flowers released her aura, Grandma Shichuan's face filled with shock. The divine palace stage was divided into 9 small realms, from the 1st layer to the 9th layer. Grandma Shichuan was at the 2nd layer, which was considered average among divine palace experts. 100 Flowers' child's cultivation was only at the 3rd layer, so the difference between them wasn't that great. But now, 100 Flowers had directly released the power of the 6th layer. This was already considered extremely strong among divine palace experts. However, what Granny Shichuan didn't know was that after Bai Hua had refined the sacred medicine, the reverse origin fruit, and cured her illness, her cultivation had directly increased by 3 layers, reaching the 6th layer. With a difference of 4 layers, 100 Flowers had the strength to kill Grandma Shichuan. I said that today, the arena will be stained with the blood of the divine palace. Seeing this, Yi Guqin shook his head and sighed. Chapter 6:16. The aura of the 6th layer of the 100 Flowers divine palace erupted. This also caused Emperor Ling and the others to reveal looks of astonishment. What's going on? How did 100 Flowers' child's strength increase so much? Emperor Yan was afraid. 100 Flowers' child's cultivation had only been at the 3rd layer of the divine palace, the same as Emperor Yan. Xian Tai was also at the 3rd layer of the divine palace, which was why Feng Manlu had easily cut off his arm. No matter what, Grandma Shichuan cannot die today. Emperor Ling, Emperor Yan, Xian Tai, Marquis Huntian and the others looked at each other. If Grandma Shichuan died, Consonant's divine palace would return to the 100 Flowers' divine palace. She naturally wouldn't let Consonant's divine palace join the four-sect alliance. The marriage between Zhou Tong and Zither Fairy was a small matter. The real issue was the four-sect alliance. If Consonant's divine palace didn't join the alliance, the three sects would be much weaker. Moreover, from the looks of it, Yi Guqin had a deep relationship with the 100 Flowers' divine palace. Otherwise, the 100 Flowers' divine palace wouldn't have suddenly appeared to protect Yi Guqin. Since that was the case, the 100 Flowers' divine palace might be pulled into the Sword Sect Tower Forest's camp. Therefore, Xian Tai and the others couldn't just watch Grandma Xichuan die. Go! Emperor Ling and the others attacked without hesitation. Palace Master of the 100 Flowers' divine palace, in my opinion, we should sit down and talk, Emperor Ling said. He was about to attack to suppress the 100 Flowers' divine palace. Emperor Ling's cultivation was stronger than Emperor Yan's. He was also at the 6th layer of the divine palace, so he wasn't afraid of the 100 Flowers' divine palace. Emperor Ling, have you forgotten about me? Feng Manlu's figure seemed to teleport as he blocked Emperor Ling. You. Emperor Ling's face twitched. Although Feng Manlu was at the Heaven-Earth Spirit Bridge stage, his full strength wasn't weaker than the 6th layer of the divine palace. With Feng Manlu blocking him, Emperor Ling couldn't help Grandma Xichuan. Sect Master Qingyang of the 9 Profound Sect also attacked to suppress Emperor Yan. Only divine palace experts left were Xian Tai, Marquis Huntian and Yu Bufan. Xian Tai and Marquis Huntian immediately attacked. Xian Tai was at level 3 while Marquis Huntian was at level 2. Although they couldn't compare to 100 Flowers, if they joined forces with Grandma Xichuan, it would be nearly impossible for 100 Flowers to kill them. Yu Bufan had always been watching from the side, his realm was even higher. After all, he was an existence that could fight against the Forbidden Violet summit of the Wind-Sweeping Tower 10 years ago. Yu Bufan's cultivation had reached the 7th layer of the Divine Dwelling Realm. However, he had always stayed out of it and had no intention of helping either side. Seeing Xian Tai and Marquis Huntian rush over to help, Granny Xichuan's old face relaxed. She looked at 100 Flowers and laughed dryly. What's wrong, 100 Flowers child? Why don't we make peace? You won't be able to kill me today. Is that so? 100 Flowers' beautiful eyes flashed slightly, and a cold smile appeared on her lips. Behind them, Yi Guqin shook his head. The two of you, make your move. Yi Guqin spoke casually, as if he was talking to the air. But just as he finished speaking, 2 black-robed figures charged out from the crowd like black lightning and collided with Xian Tai and Lord Huntian. Boom! Boom! 2 violent collisions erupted, under the extremely shocked gazes of the crowd. Xian Tai and Lord Huntian were both blasted back, coughing up blood. Who are you? Xian Tai and Lord Huntian both paled. The 2 black-robed figures had forced them back in a single exchange. Moreover, their auras made Xian Tai and Lord Huntian's faces turn ugly. Heavens, 2 more divine dwelling experts. Where did they come from? Everyone in the arena was in an uproar. Many people hadn't seen this many divine dwelling experts in their entire lives. What kind of method does Yi Guqin have to make so many divine dwelling experts fight for him? Many people exclaimed. Who are you? I am the master of the Limitless Sword Sect's Sun Moon Hall, Xian Tai. Xian Tai revealed a trace of fear. He wanted to use the Limitless Sword Sect to pressure others. After all, the Limitless Sword Sect had Xian Wuji, whose strength was unfathomable. Ordinary divine dwelling experts wouldn't dare to ignore Xian Wuji. How can I not obey the young king's orders? An old voice sounded from under the black robe. Young king. Xian Tai was puzzled. However, one thing was certain. With the 2 mysterious black-robed figures obstructing them, they couldn't help Grandma Xichuan. When Grandma Xichuan saw this unexpected scene, the smile on her face froze. 100 Flowers sneered, Song Xichuan, no one can disturb you now. No. Palace. Palace Master, I. Grandma Sichuan's old face was filled with panic. With Emperor Ling and the others supporting her, she had nothing to fear. But now, everyone was tied down. How could Grandma Sichuan be a match for 100 Flowers alone? Die! 100 Flowers brazenly attacked. The power of the sixth layer of the divine dwelling realm erupted as it attacked Grandma Sichuan. Grandma Sichuan's face was filled with terror as she struggled for her life. On the other side, Yi Guqin withdrew his gaze and stared at Zhou Tong. Zhou Tong's hair stood on end. Zhou Tong, why don't we take advantage of this opportunity to settle everything? Yi Guqin slowly walked towards Zhou Tong with the Xianming heavy sword in his hand. No. No, Yi Guqin, we can discuss this. I can turn over a new leaf. Zhou Tong panicked and his heart trembled with fear. He had already experienced Yi Guqin's battle strength. Even though he had broken through to the life and death threshold, he was still no match for Yi Guqin. Do you still have a life-saving jade talisman on you? The corners of Yi Guqin's mouth rose in a playful smile. Zhou Tong's face was deathly pale. He felt cold all over and his heart was about to freeze. He didn't have a second life-saving jade talisman. It wasn't easy to refine such a talisman. Emperor Ling was already being considerate by giving him one to protect himself. If you don't, then I'll take your life today. Yi Guqin didn't say anything else. He didn't want to delay any longer. His ancient god form erupted. Terrifying ancient god power flowed out from his body, turning into ancient runes of light. He slashed out with his heavy sword towards Zhou Tong. No, Yi Guqin, you can't kill me. I'm a member of the 3 imperial palaces. If you kill me, my master and the 3 imperial palaces won't let you off. Zhou Tong retreated as he roared. Yi Guqin's sudden attack shocked everyone. Damn it! If you dare to kill my disciple, I'll hunt you to the ends of the earth. Emperor Ling's face changed as he furiously said. Emperor Ling, do you think I won't risk my life? If you dare to kill Yi Guqin, I'll wash the 3 imperial palaces with blood. Feng Manlu's voice was cold. His divine wind sword merged into the void as he fought with Emperor Ling. Because Yi Guqin's killing move was too sudden, even the elders of the 3 imperial palaces couldn't react in time. The young war emperor was the closest to Zhou Tong. His expression changed. In the end, he sighed. Although he was furious that Zhou Tong had framed LV Qinghan. But Zhou Tong was still a member of the 3 imperial palaces. If the young war emperor ignored him, it would inevitably cause Emperor Ling's resentment. Just as the young war emperor was about to save Zhou Tong, Su Moyan's footsteps flashed as he arrived in front of the young war emperor. I've said it before. If you attack, I'll accompany you. Su Moyan held Mo Kuang in his hand as he coldly faced Zhou Tong. No. Zhou Tong let out a desperate roar when he saw this scene. His only hope of survival had been blocked. Behind him, Yi Guqin attacked with his sword. Zhou Tong, you're too smart. You've ruined Qingqing's life. 10,000 gods tribulation, heaven and earth destruction. The sword slashed out, destroying heaven and earth. Accompanied by the vigorous ancient god power, the sword radiance pierced through everything. Puchi. Even though Zhou Tong resisted with all his strength, his body was still penetrated and a large hole appeared in his chest. Reincarnation Sword Lotus. Golden true energy gushed out from Yi Guqin's palm and turned into a beautiful sword lotus with 36 leaves. It wrapped around Zhou Tong's body. Ah! Zhou Tong's painful howl came out from the sword lotus. Accompanied by a teeth-numbing screeching sound, countless pieces of blood, flesh, and bone shot out. In the end, it turned into a pile of flesh. Zhou Tong felt as if he had been cut into pieces. Fallen. Chapter 617. Silence. The tens of thousands of warriors in the arena were dumbfounded. Yi Guqin had actually dared to ignore Emperor Ling's threat and kill Zhou Tong. And in such a cruel way. Looking at the broken bones and remains on the ground, everyone looked at Yi Guchen with fear in their eyes. Was this the result of going against Yi Guchen? Queen Yuan, she couldn't help but shiver. Did she dare to hate Yi Guchen and go against him? Ren Tingting's face was extremely pale. She stared blankly at the remains, her mind blank. Zhou Tong, whom she admired and respected, had died just like that. Ren Tingting recalled how she had told Zither Fairy that Zhou Tong could crush Yi Guchen with a single finger. How naive and ironic that thought was. On the Shintu family's side, Shintu Zhan and Shintu Miao were restless. Their backs were drenched in sweat. They could only pray that Yi Guchen had not found out the truth about the four elders. Or that he had not found any evidence. Or else, Shintu Zhan and Shintu Miao looked at each other. They could not imagine the consequences. Yi Guchen, you deserve to die. Emperor Ling, who was fighting with Feng Manlu, saw this scene from the corner of his eye. His eyes were about to split open. Although Zhou Tong was useless, he was still Emperor Ling's disciple. Moreover, Zhou Tong had already broken through to the life and death threshold. He might have a chance to reach a higher level in the future. But now, Zhou Tong had been killed by Yi Guchen. The hatred of his disciple's death made Emperor Ling's hair stand on end. His aura was chaotic. Previously, Zhou Tong said that he wanted to fight one-on-one, regardless of life or death. I only did what I should. Facing the furious Emperor Ling, Yi Guchen's expression was calm. Yi Guchen, you are too fearless. Zhou Tong is not only my disciple, he is also a member of the 3 imperial palaces. The War Emperor will not let this matter rest. Emperor Ling was furious as he shouted coldly. These words caused many people to reveal a look of fear. The 3 royal palaces had a total of 3 sovereigns and divine palace experts. Other than the Yan Emperor and the Ling Emperor, there was also the Battle Emperor. The War Emperor was also the one with the highest cultivation and the strongest battle prowess among the 3 emperors. Even Feng Manlu frowned when he heard the name of the Battle Emperor. The War Emperor was even stronger than the Spirit Emperor, and was almost at the pinnacle of the divine dwelling stage. Along with Xian Wuji of the Limitless Sword sect, they were both peak existences. If the Battle Emperor were to show up in the end, the situation would be dire. However, in the face of Emperor Ling's threat, Yi Guchen simply smiled. If the Battle Emperor is that shameless, then let him come, Yi Guchen said calmly. How dare you? The Ling Emperor and the Yan Emperor roared furiously. The Sword sect is really daring to provoke the Battle Emperor. I think it won't be long before the Battle Emperor comes to punish them. Some people secretly sighed. Yeah, the 3 heavenly prides of the 3 royal palaces, the Little War Emperor, the Little Ling Emperor and the Little Yan Emperor, except for Yang Haotsong, the other 2 died in the hands of Yi Guchen. Someone said. 2 of the 3 heavenly prides of the 3 royal palaces died in the hands of Yi Guchen. This kind of hatred was hard to resolve. Yi Guchen remained calm in the face of all kinds of gazes. If he hadn't become the young king of the barbarian race, he might have some scruples about the 3 royal palaces. But now, what was Yi Guchen's identity? The young king of the barbarian race. The entire barbarian race obeyed his orders. Not to mention the various tribes, the divine dwelling experts of the 5 Elements Temple alone were enough to crush the entire 3 royal palaces. No matter how strong the Battle Emperor was, could he withstand the entire 5 Elements Temple? Moreover, the first elder, Wan Yanlan, was also a top divine dwelling expert. Boom! Not long after Yi Guchen killed Zhou Tong, another miserable shriek rang out. Palace Lord, it's this old one's fault. Please spare this old one's life. Grandma Shichuan was covered in blood, including her chin. Bai Hua was at the 6th firmament of the divine dwelling realm, so Grandma Shichuan could not fight back at all. Without anyone's help, Grandma Shichuan could not even escape. Being merciful to you is being cruel to the disciples of Consonant's divine palace. Bai Hua's beautiful eyes flashed coldly as she shouted. Purifying sacred flower. A terrifying wave of energy spread out, turning into a wave of light that seemed to be able to purify everything. Grandma Shichuan's old face twisted, and her eyes revealed the fear of death. No! Grandma Shichuan's miserable shriek spread out from the wave of light. Then, there was a loud bang. Grandma Shichuan's entire body exploded in the wave of light, turning into a bloody mist that filled the sky. The dense blood mist drifted throughout the entire arena. The tens of thousands of cultivators were silent. They were speechless. They remembered what Yiguchen had said before. Today, the arena would be stained with the blood of a divine-dwelling realm expert. In the end, it was true. Everyone's gaze turned to the calm-looking youth standing with his hands clasped behind his back. Everything seemed to be within Yiguchen's expectations. Hiss hiss hiss, the sound of people sucking in cold air could be heard one after another. Everyone said that Zhou Tong was quick-witted and calculative. But now, it seemed that Yiguchen's intelligence was not inferior to Zhou Tong's. After all, a divine-dwelling realm expert had been played to death by him. Song Shichuan is dead. Today, I will regain control of Consonant's divine palace. Since Zhou Tong is dead, the engagement is invalid. I also announce that Consonant's divine palace will not join the four-sect alliance. Bai Hua announced with a dignified expression. LV Qinghan, Zither Fairy, and most of the elders and disciples of Consonant's divine palace cheered. Only Ren Tingting and a few people from Grandma Shichuan's faction turned pale. Yiguchen looked at all this, then turned to Zither Fairy. You're injured, and your qi is sealed. Yiguchen frowned. I'm fine. Thank you for your concern. Zither Fairy smiled. A cold light flashed in Yiguchen's eyes. Zither Fairy's body was weak and she had been abused. It went without saying who was the culprit. Yiguchen landed beside Bai Hua and said a few words. Is that so? Bai Hua's face turned cold. She landed in front of Zither Fairy and unsealed her qi. Then, she stared coldly at Ren Tingting and the others. You are all disciples of Consonant's divine palace. How dare you harm your fellow disciples and help the evildoer? Today, I will cripple your cultivation and expel you from Consonant's divine palace as punishment. As Bai Hua's voice faded, she raised her hand and flicked her fingers. Rays of true qi shot out, directly hitting Ren Tingting and the others. Ugh! Ren Tingting spat out a large mouthful of blood. Her body flew backward and fell to the ground. No, no. Ren Tingting's body was in pain. She found that her qi had been broken. Her face was extremely pale. Her cultivation was crippled and she was expelled from Consonant's divine palace. In the future, she would definitely be miserable. No, Palace Master, please don't expel me. Zither Fairy, I was wrong, I was wrong. Ren Tingting wailed incessantly as she kowtowed with all her might. Her forehead was bleeding from the kowtow. Although Zither Fairy couldn't bear it, she still turned her head away when she thought of Ren Tingting's past viciousness. Get lost. Bai Hua flicked her sleeve. Ren Tingting and the others were sent flying backward, as if they were trash. Seeing this scene, many martial artists were surprised. They were not surprised by Bai Hua's actions, but by Yiguchen's ability to influence Bai Hua's decision. Why do I feel that Palace Master Bai Hua listens to Yiguchen? Some people's eyes were faintly suspicious. They did not know that it was Yiguchen who had obtained the reversal origin fruit for Bai Hua. The reason why Bai Hua had recovered and its cultivation had soared was because of Yiguchen. With Grandma Shichuan's death, Emperor Ling and the others stopped. Xian Tai and the others looked at the two black-robed people with extreme fear. The two black-robed people landed behind Yiguchen. This scene caused many people's pupils to constrict. It was as if the two black-robed people of the divine dwelling stage were Yiguchen's servants. This was truly shocking. However, before anyone could think about it, an indifferent and cold voice suddenly sounded from the sky. Junior, you dare to challenge the dignity of the three imperial palaces. You have courage. Everyone looked over and saw a figure walking over from afar, standing high up in the sky. The newcomer wore dazzling golden armor and a blood-red cloak that fluttered in the air. His figure was as tall as a mountain and his hands were clasped behind his back. He was like a golden mountain that suppressed the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers. He's the War Emperor. Countless people were petrified. They were dumbfounded and exclaimed one after another. The strongest emperor of the 3 imperial palaces, the War Emperor, had come. Chapter 6:18. The War Emperor was the leader of the 3 emperors of the 3 palaces. He was also the most powerful existence. Not many people knew what cultivation level the War Emperor had reached. But there was no doubt that the War Emperor was the pillar of the 3 palaces. As long as the War Emperor was around, the 3 palaces would never fall. Normally speaking, such an existence would not appear in front of the public. But now, he had appeared, which shocked the crowd. War Emperor, the Ling Emperor and the Yen Emperor nodded slightly when they saw the War Emperor. From this, one could see that the War Emperor was ranked first among the 3 emperors. Looking at the Ling Emperor and the others, the crowd was even more certain that the figure was the War Emperor. Their gazes were fixed on the towering figure in the sky. An oppressive aura like Mount Tai enveloped the entire arena. Now that the War Emperor was here, there was no doubt about his intentions. He was here to punish them. Master. Yang Haozang cupped his hands in greeting when he saw the War Emperor. After all, he was the War Emperor's disciple. The War Emperor nodded and looked at Yiguchen. But his gaze paused on the 2 black-robed figures behind Yiguchen. May I know who you are? Today's matter is between this junior and the 3 palaces. If you leave, I will not make things difficult for you. The War Emperor said calmly. Even though the 2 black-robed figures could force Xian Wuji and Lord Huntian to retreat, the War Emperor was still confident. However, the War Emperor was still confident. His expression did not change at all. This was the attitude of a top divine dwelling realm expert. But what surprised the crowd was that the 2 black-robed figures did not even bother with the War Emperor. They stood silently behind Yiguchen like the most loyal servants. This made the War Emperor's face sink. Who in the Saint Origin dynasty did not know the War Emperor? Oh, War Emperor, I did not expect you to come, although it's just an illusion. Yiguchen was not afraid of the War Emperor. He shook his head and smiled. What? An illusion? The crowd was tongue-tied and looked at the War Emperor in the sky again. Only then did they notice that the War Emperor was slightly illusory. Previously, they were too shocked by the arrival of the Battle Emperor, so they didn't notice this detail. Oh my god, it's just an illusion and it's already so powerful. How terrifying would the real Battle Emperor be? All the martial artists were stunned. Because of this, the Battle Emperor's strength became even more unfathomable. Junior, I admire your courage. Unfortunately, you're too foolish. Ji Yen and Zhou Tong are both disciples of the 3 imperial palaces. Both of them were killed by you. Do you have any awareness of death? As soon as he finished speaking, the entire place fell into a dead silence. Who wouldn't be afraid of the Battle Emperor's condemnation? War Emperor, you've gone too far, Feng Manlu said indifferently. Feng Manlu, you're not bad, but you can't stop me. The War Emperor said coldly. Their words were tit for tat and the smell of gunpowder was very strong. All the warriors held their breaths. There weren't many people in the Saint Origin dynasty who dared to ignore the Sword King. Their gazes then turned to Yiguchen. Could Yiguchen still withstand the pressure of the Battle Emperor? Yiguchen's expression was calm. However, before he could say anything, a voice rang out. Far away in the sky, there was another voice. Northern Liang City is really lively today. War Emperor, I didn't expect you to appear. When the voice rang out, it surprised everyone again. However, in the Saint Origin Academy camp, Princess Yuan Shi's face was filled with joy when she heard the voice. A middle-aged man in an imperial robe with a dragon crown on his head appeared and stood high in the sky. Along with his appearance, there seemed to be a golden dragon aura spiraling around him. That's Yuan Master. Oh my god, it's the Saint Origin Dynasty's lord. He's also the true leader of the Saint Origin Academy. If the Battle Emperor's arrival was surprising, then, Yuan Master's arrival was surprising. Greetings, Your Majesty. Lord Huntian bowed. Greetings, Your Majesty. There were tens of thousands of martial artists in the arena. Except for those with high status, the rest of the ordinary martial artists knelt on the ground. After all, Yuan Master was the Saint Origin Dynasty's emperor. If he only had a high status, he might not be able to gain the respect of all the martial artists. However, Yuan Master's cultivation was at the peak of the Divine Palace realm. Otherwise, how could he be in charge of the dynasty? Greetings, Your Majesty. Princess Yuan Shi also bowed. Princess Yuan Shi, Prince Yuan Yi, and Yuan Mie's father were all Yuan Masters. Heroes indeed come from the young. Yuan Master's gaze also fell on Yiguchen. When Yuan Master arrived, Yiguchen did not pay his respects. Instead, he stood there calmly. He raised his eyebrows slightly. This Yuan Master was also just a shadow. Obviously, everyone had also noticed. I originally wanted to secretly observe the establishment of the Four-Sect Alliance. However, I didn't expect that the one who controlled the Consonance Palace would be Yiguchen. Yuan Master's tone was indifferent, without any emotion. Saint Origin Academy was also one of the three sect alliances. Since it had joined forces with the Limitless Sword Sect and the three imperial palaces. Naturally, Yuan Master had acquiesced behind the scenes. Those who come don't come with good intentions. Yiguchen thought to himself. In fact, he did not have a good relationship with Saint Origin Academy. They had clashed many times, and Prince Yuan Yi had almost died at the hands of Yiguchen. As Yuan Master's most valued son, Prince Yuan Yi probably did not have a good impression of Yiguchen. Yiguchen, I won't talk nonsense with you today. Bring a bramble and beg for punishment. Kneel in front of the three imperial palaces for 7 days and 7 nights and keep vigil for Zhou Tong. If you are sincere, I may spare your life. The War Emperor's tone was indifferent. It was as if his words were the result. Yuan Master's expression was calm and he did not say anything. Even though Yiguchen could do great things among the younger generation, he had not grown up yet. In the eyes of these big shots, he was still like an ant that could be easily crushed. Damn it. If only father came back. Yan Wushuang's pretty face was ugly. Her father, Yan Chang'e, was always traveling outside and did not return to the sect. The current situation was very dangerous for Yiguchen. Even if Feng Manlu was there, they would not be able to hold the fort unless Yan Chang'e came. Yan Wushuang looked extremely worried. Not only Yan Wushuang, but most of the people present thought that Yiguchen's matter would not end well today. Even my father is here. Yiguchen is finished. No one can save him today. Princess Yuan Shi shook her head. She was very sure of it. Yiguchen, I want to see with my own eyes that you are in a worse state than me. Ren Tingting's hair was disheveled and she was covered in dust. The blood at the corner of her mouth had not dried yet. It was all thanks to Yiguchen that she was crippled in such a sorry state. Everyone's eyes were focused on Yiguchen. Some were worried for Yiguchen, while others were gloating and looking forward to Yiguchen's death. However, Yiguchen's expression did not change from beginning to end. Yiguchen glanced coldly at the War Emperor and Yuan Master's illusory figures in the sky. Just as he was about to say something, Wan Yanlan, who was hidden in a black robe behind him, moved his lips and secretly transmitted a message. Yiguchen raised his eyebrows abruptly. There was a strange look on his face as he looked at the other side of the sky. Ah! I didn't expect that there would be a third expert who is interested in me besides the War Emperor and Yuan Master. Show yourself. Yiguchen put his hands behind his back and looked calm. Well, what is Yiguchen talking about? The martial artists present were all puzzled. Only the War Emperor and Yuan Master looked at Yiguchen in surprise. Interesting. Feng Manlu, you have taken in a good disciple. A faint laugh came from the void where Yiguchen was staring. Then, in the eyes of all the martial artists, a ball of black and white light slowly appeared from the void. The appearance of this ball of light silenced everyone present. This was because they felt that the power of this ball of black and white light was no weaker than the War Emperor and Yuan Masters. Black. Limitless, Feng Manlu's tone was indifferent as he spoke word by word. Chapter 619. High up in the sky, the ball of black and white light was like a black and white sun, shining brightly in the sky. A figure slowly walked out from the black and white light. It was an ordinary-looking middle-aged man in a black and white robe, carrying a sword on his back. He looked like a Taoist in a Taoist temple in the mortal world. His eyes were very strange. One of them was completely black, while the other was completely white. A black and white pattern appeared behind his head. It looked like a Tai Chi yin-yang fish. It looked very mysterious. As he appeared, the atmosphere in the arena changed again. The sect master of the Limitless Sword Sect, Xian Wuji, had appeared. Oh my god, what's going on today? The War Emperor, Yuan Master and Xian Wuji are all here. My horizons have been broadened this time. Yiguchen won't be able to survive today. Feng Manlu alone can't withstand the pressure of the War Emperor, Yuan Master and Xian Wuji. Xian Wuji's arrival shocked the crowd and made them sigh. They had witnessed Yiguchen's arrogance today. However, this arrogance was laughable in front of the War Emperor, Yuan Master and Xian Wuji. Feng Manlu, how have you been? Xian Wuji did not pay attention to Yiguchen at first, as if Yiguchen was just an insignificant character. He looked at Feng Manlu with a calm expression. Feng Manlu's expression was calm, but how could he forget Xian Wuji? 10 years ago, after he and Yu Bufan had a sword and saber duel at the Forbidden City, the person who followed him and attacked him secretly, destroying his Dantian and spiritual palace was Xian Wuji. However, because there was no evidence and Xian Wuji was the sect master, not many people believed that Xian Wuji would do such a thing. Of course, Xian Wuji would not admit it. Although Feng Manlu was calm, Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling and the other disciples of the sword sect stared at Xian Wuji with hatred in their eyes. The others did not believe it, but all the disciples of the sword sect knew. The person who looked dignified on the surface but was despicable in the dark was Xian Wuji. 10 years later, Xian Wuji's cultivation base had become even more unfathomable. He was almost at the peak of Saint Origin dynasty. As for Feng Manlu, even though his divine dwelling had been destroyed, he still relied on his persistence and comprehension to cultivate in seclusion in the sword sect pagoda for 10 years to comprehend the unity of man and sword. With one move, he could suppress the divine dwelling stage. The might of the Sword King was invincible. But what if Feng Manlu's spiritual palace wasn't destroyed? If that was the case, how terrifying would his current cultivation be? With his talent, it was not impossible for him to become a venerable one. In the end, because of Xian Wuji's sneak attack, Wind Sweeping Tower's spiritual abode had been destroyed, almost cutting off any possibility of cultivation. How could this not cause the disciples of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest to gnash their teeth in anger? The Supreme Sword King in their hearts had actually used such a method to sever the path of cultivation. Ha, Feng Manlu, you have indeed surprised me. Sword Sect Pagoda has been in seclusion for 10 years, and the moment he came out, his cultivation is comparable to the 6th level of the Divine Dwelling Realm. If you had not been plotted against 10 years ago, sigh, Xian Wuji shook his head as if it was a pity. Hypocrite. Yan Wushuang and the others almost vomited when they saw Xian Wuji's pretentious appearance. They knew that Xian Wuji was secretly mocking Feng Manlu and wanted to destroy his cultivation heart. You didn't come here today to reminisce about the past with me, right? Feng Manlu's heart was as calm as still water, and he was not angered by Xian Wuji's deliberate reopening of old wounds. Ha, you cut off Xian Tai's arm, and your disciple Yi Guqin killed many disciples of the limitless sword sect in the void sword realm. Let's settle this score today, Xian Wuji said indifferently. You're just a phantom? Feng Manlu asked. It turned out that Xian Wuji, like the Battle Emperor and Yuan Master, had also come here as a phantom. That's enough. Xian Wuji smiled. In the middle of the square, Yi Guqin glanced at Xian Wuji with only indifference in his eyes. He also knew about the matter between Feng Manlu and Xian Wuji. At that time, Xian Wuji was wary of Feng Manlu's talent and secretly attacked him to destroy his divine dwelling. Now, Yi Guqin's talent naturally attracted Xian Wuji's attention. It was normal for Xian Wuji to want to kill him. But was Yi Guqin a fish waiting to be slaughtered? Alright, Xian Wuji, I think we have the same goal. Today, Yi Guqin must pay the price. The Battle Emperor did not want to delay. Yi Guqin, do it yourself. Xian Wuji did not want to say more. Yuan Master did not say anything. Although Prince Yuani and Yi Guqin had a grudge, Prince Yuani was still alive. The grudge between Yi Guqin and Saint Origin Academy was not so bad. Xian Wuji, Battle Emperor, today, even if you come in person, you won't be able to touch me, let alone just your phantoms. Yi Guqin's voice resounded throughout the square. Calm, indifferent, and confident. The tens of thousands of martial artists present all widened their eyes, and the sound of inhaling could be heard. Each and every one of them was inexplicably shocked, as if they had misheard. Yi Guqin couldn't even touch Yi Guqin with his real body. Who was Yi Guqin? A divine dwelling expert. Even a divine dwelling expert would not dare to say such a thing. The Battle Emperor, Yuan Master, and Xian Wuji were all powerful existences. Ordinary divine dwelling experts were no match for them. Even with the protection of Feng Manlu and the 100-Flower Palace Master, it was impossible for them to deal with the Battle Emperor and the others. I thought Yi Guqin was arrogant, but now it seems that he is simply a lunatic. Princess Yuan, she shook her head and wanted to laugh. Yi Guqin did not even take her father, an expert of the same level, seriously. Yang Haotsang also looked coldly at Yi Guqin. As the Battle Emperor's disciple, he knew how powerful and unfathomable the Battle Emperor was. Yi Guqin's words were arrogant to the point of stupidity. Yi Guqin's opponents, Ling Ju, Nia Ling, Mo Juechen, the Shinto family, and the crippled Ren Tingting, all sneered. They were going to sit here and watch Yi Guqin be crushed. Interesting, really interesting. It has been a long time since I met such an interesting junior. Xian Wuji was not angry at all. He just found it amusing and ridiculous. The Battle Emperor's expression darkened. He had a tough character and did not allow others to offend him. Die. Without saying anything else, the Battle Emperor stretched out a hand and pressed down like a corner of the sky. Even if it was just a shadow, his means were shocking. The powerful pressure of the divine dwelling stage erupted. Xian Wuji flicked his finger and a black and white sword light, which seemed to penetrate the sun and moon, shot towards Yi Guqin. He wanted to kill Yi Guqin with a flick of his finger. Feng Manlu, the 100-Flower Palace Master and the others wanted to intervene, but the Spirit Emperor, the Flame Emperor, Xian Tai, and the others were not going to just sit there and do nothing. Without any obstruction, the Battle Emperor and Xian Wuji's shadows were about to crush Yi Guqin. Look, Yi Guqin is still standing there like a fool. I'm afraid his legs have turned to jelly from the pressure and he can't even move. Some of the opponents sneered. Yi Guqin shook his head. He stood with his hands behind his back. Just as the palm print and the black and white sword light were about to land on Yi Guqin. Behind him, the two figures who had been standing silently all this while also suddenly made their move. With two loud explosions, the two figures blocked in front of Yi Guqin and destroyed the Battle Emperor and Xian Wuji's moves. Well, the two divine dwelling experts really dare to go against the Battle Emperor and Xian Wuji? Some of the martial artists were bewildered. Under tens of thousands of gazes, the two black-robed men slowly took off their black robes. The Heaven Barbarian King and Wan Yanlan's figures were completely revealed in front of everyone. Today, if anyone dares to attack the young prince, don't blame me for not showing mercy. Wan Yanlan spoke, and the aura of a top divine dwelling expert erupted in all directions. The young prince cannot be humiliated. The Heaven Barbarian King's voice was deafening, like a sudden clap of thunder that shook all directions. Chapter 620. Surprise. Extremely surprise. This was a complete reversal of the situation. When Wan Yanlan and Heaven Barbarian King appeared behind Yiguchen, countless gasps could be heard from the crowd. Perhaps they were unfamiliar with Wan Yanlan. Because Wan Yanlan had been in the Five Elements Temple all year round, few people from the seven major forces knew about him. But Heaven Barbarian King was different. Heaven Barbarian King had a fierce reputation among the seven major forces. He had seriously injured several divine dwelling realm experts from the seven major forces. In the end, Feng Manlu had to step in to restrain him, but he had also suffered serious injuries. Therefore, when Heaven Barbarian King revealed his true identity, most people knew who he was. What is going on? Why is Heaven Barbarian King following Yiguchen? It seems that Heaven Barbarian King is Yiguchen's servant. Does Five Crown King have such a high status in the barbarian race? Many martial artists stared with their eyes wide open. Even if Five Crown King had a high status in the barbarian race, it was impossible for him to let a divine dwelling realm expert be his servant. Just like Four Crown King, Tuoba Shang, although Heaven Barbarian King was his guardian, he would not follow him all the time, let alone be his servant. This was what shocked everyone. Heaven Barbarian King. Ling Huang, Yan Huang, and Xian Tai's faces suddenly changed. Especially Yan Huang and Xian Tai, who had fought with Heaven Barbarian King before, naturally knew how powerful he was. How dare you, Yiguchen, you are really a traitor. How dare you bring the divine dwelling realm experts of the barbarian race into northern Yang City? Ling Huang shouted coldly, his eyes incomparably sharp. Zhou Tong had died at the hands of Yiguchen, and Ling Huang had made up his mind to make sure that Yiguchen would not be able to walk out of the arena today. The Soul Emperor's words caused the faces of all the cultivators present to tighten. These were two divine palace experts from the barbarian race. If they were to go on a rampage and the city gates caught fire, the fish in the moat would be implicated, and they would also suffer. Even Feng Manlu, who had always been calm, was surprised when he heard that Heaven Barbarian King had appeared. He did not expect that Heaven Barbarian King would follow Yiguchen. For a moment, the atmosphere was tense. Although there was a strong smell of gunpowder before, it was still a battle between the seven major forces after all. Now, it was about the two camps. Did Sword Sekyu really join the barbarian camp? I just heard that the Barbarian King called Yiguchen Young King. Could it be that Yiguchen is really a spy of the barbarian race and his real identity is the Barbarian King? Many people were surprised and doubtful. Even more people looked at Yiguchen suspiciously. Although Yiguchen was disgusting, if what he said was true and that Yiguchen was a spy from the barbarian tribe, then the two of them were actually on the same level. Yiguchen calmed down when he sensed the doubtful gazes around him. He looked at the Battle Emperor and Xian Wuji and smiled faintly. Battle Emperor, you once asked me if I was prepared to die. In that case, Battle Emperor, do you have the ability to kill me? Yi Futian asked coldly. Yiguchen stood with his hands behind his back and said with a smile. He was fearless in the face of a top divine mansion realm expert. The Battle Emperor looked tense and his face was as calm as water. Xian Wuji was also surprised. He looked at Wan Yanlan and said, I didn't expect that the great elder of the barbarian tribe's Five Elements Temple would become someone's slave. What? That old man is the great elder of the Five Elements Temple. I heard that the Five Elements Temple is the top force of the barbarian tribe and the great elder's cultivation is unfathomable. He is the pillar of the barbarian tribe. After hearing Xian Wuji's words, everyone present knew Wan Yanlan's real identity. However, the more they knew, the more surprised they looked at Yiguchen. The heavenly barbarian king was already shocking enough. Now, even the great elder of the Five Elements Temple was following Yiguchen. Oh, I have heard a lot about the sect master of the Limitless Sword sect. However, no matter what you say, it is useless. Although young King Yi is not a member of the barbarian tribe, he is now the young king of the barbarian tribe. Wan Yanlan was not bothered by Xian Wuji's provocation. However, his words also surprised everyone present. Yiguchen is not a member of the barbarian tribe. How can he be the barbarian tribe's young King Yi? What the hell is going on? Many people were puzzled. However, they knew that it was almost impossible for the Battle Emperor and the others to kill Yiguchen with just the illusory figures. The faces of Yiguchen's enemies turned pale. Ren Tingting was dejected and had given up hope. The Flame Emperor, Ling Emperor, Xian Tai, and the others looked cold. If there was only the heavenly barbarian king, they might be able to pin him down and kill Yiguchen. However, it was different with Wan Yanlan. Wan Yanlan was on par with the Battle Emperor, Yuan Master, and Xian Wuji. The Battle Emperor and the others were only illusory figures while Wan Yanlan was in his true form. Their strength was incomparable. Even if the Battle Emperor and the others came in their true forms, it was almost impossible for them to kill Wan Yanlan. It was not easy for a top Divine Palace realm expert to die unless there was a stronger honorable. However, there was no honorable in the Saint Origin dynasty. It could be said that Yiguchen had made a complete comeback. Even the Battle Emperor and the others could not do anything to Yiguchen. Today, I will declare that if anyone dares to attack His Highness, then all the forces of power in the land of berserkers will definitely not let this matter rest. Wan Yanlan released his chi with a bang, and his words, which were like those of a god, spread in all directions. His words silenced the entire fighting ground. The entire barbarian tribe. All the forces. This included the Five Elements Temple, the barbarian family and the metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, and other tribes. How many Divine Palace realm experts were there? It was impossible for any one of the forces to fight against such a force alone. The Battle Emperor's face froze when he heard this. Xian Wuji's face, which had been calm all this while, suddenly changed. He did not expect Yiguchen to have such an irreplaceable position in Wan Yanlan's heart. Yuan Master's face darkened. The Saint Origin dynasty and the barbarian tribe had been fighting for a long time. However, Yiguchen alone led the entire barbarian tribe. Did that mean that Yiguchen could change the barbarian tribe's will with a single order? Yuan Master fell into deep thought. Yiguchen was no longer an ant that could be easily killed in his eyes. Yiguchen, what are your intentions for bringing Wan Yanlan and the others here today? If it's a threat, the 7 major forces will accompany you, the Battle Emperor said coldly. He did not only mention the 3 palaces but also the 7 major forces. Yiguchen smiled and said, "Today, I have brought the Great Elder and the others here to make peace. The war will end here." What? End the war? Many martial artists were surprised. Then, they were overjoyed. If possible, who would want to start a war with the barbarian tribe? Even the 7 major forces were not willing to do so. If Yiguchen could really end the war with his own strength, his achievements would be unparalleled. He could feel the joy on the faces of the martial artists around him. Yiguchen smiled faintly and said casually, "But before the peace talks, I don't like people acting high and mighty in front of me. Great Elder, Lord Heaven Barbarian, get rid of them." "Yes, Your Highness." Wan Yanlan and Lord Heaven Barbarian bowed. Then, they stepped into the void and attacked the illusory figures of the Battle Emperor and Xian Wuji. "Yiguchen, how dare you!" The Battle Emperor was infuriated. Xian Wuji's face was no longer calm. Although it was just an illusory figure, it had supreme authority and could not be offended by anyone. How dare an illusory figure be so presumptuous in front of the young master? Wan Yanlan and Lord Heaven Barbarian looked indifferent. The two of them struck at lightning speed. Even the spiritual emperor, Flame Emperor, and Xian Tai could not stop them. With two loud explosions, the illusory figures of the Battle Emperor and Xian Tai exploded. Chapter 621. A violent collision broke out in the sky. Although the War Emperor and Xian Wuji were strong, they were only illusions. It was good enough that they were comparable to Divine Dwelling Realm experts. However, Wan Yanlan and the Heaven Barbarian King were genuine experts. Mere illusions were nothing in their eyes. As the shockwave spread out, the illusions of the two experts turned into light spots and disappeared. They really made a move. Tens of thousands of martial artists were speechless. What had happened today had made their hearts beat wildly. The War Emperor and Xian Wuji were the pillars of the three imperial palaces and the Limitless Sword sect. In the Saint Origin dynasty, it had long been a supreme prestige. But today, the illusory figure that it had conjured was brutally destroyed. Sword sect Yi is amazing. All the martial artists were speechless. Yi Guqin's courage had exceeded their expectations. However, when they thought about it carefully, they realized that although Yi Guqin seemed arrogant, he had the right to be arrogant. After all, the entire barbarian tribe was his backing. At the same time when the two illusions were destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of miles away from the Great Desolate Mansion, in the Saint Origin dynasty's three imperial mountain. Three towering peaks stood tall like immemorial mountains, and they corresponded to the three rulers respectively. The tallest one was the War Emperor Mountain. In the depths of the mountain, an incomparably terrifying aura burst out like a sleeping giant dragon. Golden light shot up into the sky. At the same time, a cold and angry roar erupted. Yi Guqin, how dare you offend me? You must pay with your life. The voice was mighty and spread in all directions. All of the disciples of the three emperors' mountain trembled under the pressure of the rage. At the same time, in the western part of the Saint Origin dynasty, in the depths of the Heaven Spirit Mountain where the Limitless Sword sect was stationed. On a lake, a man in a black and white robe sat cross-legged in the middle of the lake. His body was actually floating above the lake. If one looked down from the sky, they would find that the entire lake was like a yin-yang diagram. Half of it was black and the other half was white. It was mysterious and inexplicable. The middle-aged man slowly opened his eyes. One was black and the other was white. They were abnormally deep. The barbarian young king Yi Guqin. Could he be another Feng Manlu? No, I feel that his potential is even greater than Feng Manlu's. This child cannot be allowed to live. Xian Wuji slowly got up and stepped on the surface of the lake. As he left, the entire lake quietly froze over. Northern Liang City's battle arena. The martial artists had yet to recover from their shock. The spiritual emperor, the flame emperor, Xian Tai, and the others' faces darkened. They didn't expect Yi Guqin to be so arrogant. He didn't even put the Battle Emperor and Xian Wuji in his eyes. However, with their current strength, they were unable to deal with Wan Yanlan and Heaven Barbarian King, not to mention Feng Manlu and the sect master of Hundred Flower Palace. Today, it could be said that no one could touch Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin stood in the middle with his hands clasped behind his back. Divine Dwelling experts surrounded him on all sides, but not a single one was able to do anything to him. When Queen Yuanxi, Leng Ju, and the others saw this, their faces were incomparably complicated and bitter. Regardless of cultivation, Yi Guqin's current status and foundation were not something they could compare with. Sensing the murderous intent in the eyes of the Divine Dwelling experts, Yi Guqin was calm and composed. He didn't feel that the Battle Emperor and Xian Tai were any threat. This was because no one knew that Yi Guqin didn't just rely on Wan Yanlan and the others. There was also the sealed chaotic world demonic ape, which was Blackie. Even though it had been severely injured by the Heavenly Pupil King and its cultivation level had dropped, it still possessed the battle strength of a venerable if it was unsealed. With Blackie around, no one in the Saint Origin dynasty could do anything to him. However, Yi Guqin would never use it unless it was a real life and death situation because he only had two chances. After dealing with the battle emperor and Xian Wuji, Yiguchen suddenly turned his gaze to the Shinto family. Feeling Yiguchen's sudden gaze, Shinto Zhan's heart skipped a beat, as if he had fallen into an ice cave. The reason why Shinto Zhan and the others hadn't left was because they knew that they couldn't escape. The entire Shinto family was stationed in northern Liang City. If they were to escape now, it would be akin to confessing without being pressed. Therefore, Shinto Zhan was betting that Yiguchen hadn't discovered the truth. However, it now seemed that Shinto Zhan was indeed too naive. Shinto Zhan, isn't it time to settle our score? Yiguchen said coldly. Shinto Zhan, Shinto Miao, and the others felt chills run down their spines. Even the 3 imperial palaces and the limitless sword sect couldn't do anything to Yiguchen. They were just a super family. In front of Yiguchen, they were like chickens and dogs. What's going on? Did the Shinto family also offend Yiguchen? TSK, the Shinto family is finished this time. Some of the super families that had conflicts with the Shinto family were secretly pleased. Gongsun Xianlong and the others were also surprised. The only conflict between Yiguchen and the Shinto family was probably the matter of Gongsun Xiaoya's wedding. Could it be that Shinto Zhan still had some tricks up his sleeve to deal with Yiguchen? Gongsun Xianlong thought to himself. If that was really the case, then the Shinto family was in deep trouble today. Yiguchen, I don't know what you are talking about. Even if you are the barbarian race's young king, do you think you can kill as you wish? Shinto Zhan could only force himself to speak, as cold sweat trickled down his back. The surrounding warriors were also paying close attention. If Yiguchen wanted to target a super aristocratic family because of his personal grudges and without any evidence, what would the rest of the super families think? Yiguchen lightly shook his head. You won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Shinto Zhan, open your eyes and watch carefully. Yiguchen took out a projection jade scroll. Previously, when he was dealing with the 4 Shinto family elders in the ancient desolate forbidden zone, he had taken out a projection jade scroll to record their faces. Now, it was made public. Yiguchen coldly said, I was once surrounded by 4 masked experts in the ancient desolate forbidden zone. In the end, I killed them and recorded their faces. Shinto Zhan, are you familiar with these people? Seeing the figures projected by the projection jade scroll, Shinto Zhan's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. Shinto Miao's legs trembled as his face turned pale. Aren't those the Shinto family elders? Could it be that Shinto Zhan actually sent life and death chamber elders to secretly infiltrate the ancient desolate forbidden zone to kill Yi Jianzong? The ancient desolate forbidden zone battle is the battlefield between the 7 major factions' geniuses and the barbarian race's saints. This Shinto Zhan actually dares to risk universal condemnation and send experts to kill Yiguchen. As the truth was announced, the crowd was in an uproar. Shinto Zhan's move could be said to be seeking his own death. Not to mention that Yiguchen would settle the score with him. Even the 7 major factions would not let the Shinto family off. This was because the Shinto family's move had crossed the bottom line of the 7 major factions. Feng Manlu's expression was solemn as he said indifferently, I seem to have said at the exchange that I will not let off anyone who targets Yiguchen. Shinto Zhan, you have guts. No. Feeling the killing intent in Feng Manlu's words, Shinto Zhan's body trembled. Without needing Yiguchen and the rest to make a move, Feng Manlu used his finger as a sword. The divine wind sword merged into the void as it charged towards Shinto Zhan and the rest at lightning speed. No. Shinto Zhan and the rest hurriedly retreated. Shinto Miao even sought help from the sealed Saber King Palace. Yubufan Palace Master, I beg you to make a move. No matter what, I am still a disciple of the sealed Saber King Palace. Yubufan sighed slightly. It was not that he did not want to save them, but the Shinto family was indeed seeking their own death. Even the limitless sword sect, the 3 imperial palaces and the other major factions looked on indifferently. Yiguchen, you will die a horrible death. Shinto Zhan struggled on the verge of death. Seeing that he could not escape, his face was filled with hatred as he roared angrily. I hate you. Shintu Miao roared in grief and indignation. Not only had Yi Guqin ruined his marriage with Gongsun Xiaoye, he was even going to lose his life because of Yi Guqin's casual words. Puchi. The divine wind sword cut through the void as a string of heads rolled. The Shintu family was completely annihilated. Chapter 622. Almost all the experts of the Shintu family had come today. Shintu Zhan was at the Heaven and Earth Spirit Bridge realm, while the rest of the elders were also at the Life and Death Chamber realm. However, under Feng Manlu's sword, they did not even have the chance to retaliate before they were all slaughtered. A head rolled down and blood splattered everywhere. The entire upper echelon of the Shintu family had been massacred. The remaining Shintu family disciples that did not come were at most at the Divine Soul realm. Their complete annihilation was only a matter of time. The Shintu family is finished. All the warriors were alarmed. It was an indescribable feeling. They only had respect for Yi Guqin now. The super aristocratic families were annihilated just like that. They didn't even have to do anything. Gongsun Xianlong, Gongsun Yu, and the others exchanged a glance and swallowed hard. Fortunately, the Gongsun family was on good terms with Yi Guqin. Now, the power behind Yi Guqin was so strong that no one dared to provoke him. Alright, now that the matter is settled, let's discuss the matter of peace. Seeing the Shintu family being destroyed, Yi Guqin's expression remained indifferent. There was no change in his expression. He no longer put the super aristocratic families in his eyes. Alright. Actually, Saint Origin Dynasty doesn't want to start a war with the barbarian race either. High up in the sky, Yuan Master's shadow was still there. Although he didn't have a good impression of Yi Guqin because of the friction between him and the Saint Origin Academy, he didn't have a good impression of Yi Guqin. However, the price that the Saint Origin Dynasty had to pay for the continuous war with the barbarian race was simply too great. The Yuan Master didn't want to keep fighting with the barbarian race. With Wan Yanlan around, there was no need for Yi Guqin to worry too much about Tanha. As for today, the so-called four-sect alliance would naturally collapse by itself. The alliance of the Limitless Sword Sect, the three imperial palaces, and the Saint Origin Academy was not enough to have a decisive impact. Furthermore, the Rhino Divine Palace was already standing together with the Sword Sect, Tower Forest and the Nine Profound Sect. The Saber Sealing King Hall stayed out of the matter. After that, the peace negotiation between Wan Yanlan and the Yuan Master was also settled. Half of the Great Desolate Prefecture was ceded to the barbarian race, while the barbarian race withdrew their troops and stopped invading the Saint Origin Dynasty. In fact, the barbarians didn't care about land anymore. After all, with Yi Guqin around, the berserkers could obtain the ancient god's blood to train. With the support provided by the mysterious land, the berserkers' golden age was just around the corner. Alright, everyone. I'm sure you've seen enough of today's show. Let's disperse, Yi Guqin said in a clear voice. Although there were still some enemies that had not been dealt with, Yi Guqin could not possibly slaughter all of them in one day. Moreover, Yi Guqin wouldn't have wanted to borrow too much of the barbarian race's strength if he hadn't been forced by the circumstances. After all, he wanted the barbarians to develop themselves and recuperate instead of using them as tools. Yi Guqin is truly a hero. That's right. We lost so many of our brothers in the bloody war with the berserkers, but Sword Master Yi stopped the war with just a few words. Most of the martial artists present cast grateful and respectful gazes at Yi Guqin. After all, what Yi Guqin had done had benefited everyone. At this point, Yi Guqin's reputation in the Saint Origin Dynasty would be like the sun in the midday sky. Let's go. Soul Emperor, Flame Emperor, and the others were expressionless as they led the people from the three palaces away. Feng Manlu and Yi Guqin, there will be plenty of time in the future. Xian Tai said coldly as he left. If they continued to stay here, they would only be losing face and unable to show their faces. Little friend Yi. At this moment, a few people from the Gongsun family arrived. Gongsun Yu rubbed his hands together and said with a dry smile. His gaze towards Yi Guqin was incomparably fiery. Do you want the master's handwritten letter? Yi Guqin said with a faint smile. Cough. As long as you can help me, the Gongsun family will be Sword Sect's staunchest ally in the future, Gongsun Yu said firmly. Yi Guqin nodded inwardly. As a forging family, the Gongsun family's influence was not weaker than the 7 major forces. If the Gongsun family, Sword Sect's Tower Sect, Rhino Divine Palace, and 9 Profound Sect were to join them, their influence might even surpass the limitless Sword Sect's so-called 3-sect alliance. Yi Guqin made a copy of the old drunkard's handwritten letter and handed it to Gongsun Yu. Gongsun Yu was so excited that he danced around like an old urchin. At the side, Gongsun Xiaoya blinked her beautiful eyes and stared at Yi Guqin. From today onwards, Yi Guqin's influence in the Saint Origin dynasty would be unparalleled. Gongsun Xianlong sighed as he watched from the side. Perhaps Gongsun Xiaoya was still worthy of Yi Guqin in the past. But now, with Yi Guqin's status and the power behind him, the Gongsun family was no longer worthy of him. Yi Guqin, although you're a disciple of Sword Sect's Tower Sect, you've made a great contribution to the Saint Origin dynasty. Yuan Master's illusory figure said in the sky. Yi Guqin's expression darkened. When Yuan Master appeared just now, he was neither cold nor warm to him and even had a trace of hostility. But now, his tone was much gentler and there was a smile on his face. However, only the Yuan Master himself knew how sincere this smile was. It's nothing. Don't mention it. Since Yuan Master didn't take the initiative to target him, Yi Guqin wouldn't slap a smiling face. There's no doubt about your contribution. How about this? I can recommend you to participate in the Prodigy battlefield. What do you think? Yuan Master said. Prodigy battlefield? Yi Guqin was a little confused. But Feng Manlu, Centauria Palace Master, and the others were surprised. Yuan Master saw this and said faintly, Yi Guqin, do you know the Dragon Phoenix list of the South Horizon region? Dragon Phoenix list? Yi Guqin's eyes narrowed. Of course he knew. When Gu Xiaoyang arrived at the Tianhuang Plains, he had said in a proud tone. It was because he had taken Yi Guqin's innate sword embryo that he could become a peerless genius with 2 innate talents and become 9th on the Dragon Phoenix list of the South Horizon region. The Dragon Phoenix list is a list of peerless geniuses in the South Horizon region. There are a total of 100 people on the list and all of them are peerless geniuses. Most of the geniuses on the list rose in the Prodigy battlefield and entered the Dragon Phoenix list, Yuan Master said. Yi Guqin nodded secretly. Gu Xiaoyang must have participated in the Prodigy battlefield after taking away his innate sword embryo and became famous. He rose to 9th place and became one of the top 10 young masters in the South Horizon region, young master Xingyun. The Forbidden Purple Mountain of the Saint Origin dynasty is a famous place for duels. It's lucky to be chosen as the preliminary selection place for more than 10 dynasties nearby. Every dynasty has the right to recommend. When the time comes, you can also participate in the selection with the other geniuses of the Saint Origin dynasty, Yuan Master said. Thank you, Yuan Master. Yi Guqin cupped his hands. As for whether to participate, Yi Guqin was still considering. He didn't know much about the Prodigy battlefield and would ask Feng Manlu and the others later. Yuan Master saw this and nodded slightly, but a strange look flashed in his eyes. Yi Guqin is now the young king of the barbarian tribe, so I can't touch him easily. But what if the geniuses of the other dynasties kill him? Moreover, the Starry Sword Pavilion will also send people to supervise. At that time, Yi Guqin's status as the young king of the barbarian tribe will be nothing. Yuan Master thought in his heart, but his expression didn't change. Yi Guqin retracted his gaze. He knew that Yuan Master had scruples and even showed kindness because of his status as the young king of the barbarian tribe. However, the most ruthless emperors, such as Yuan Master, couldn't be trusted easily. Moreover, from the personalities of Princess Yuan Shi and Prince Yuan Yi, it could be seen that Yuan Master wasn't a kind person. The Dragon Phoenix list? Gu Xiaoyang, You relied on my innate sword embryo to get on the list. Now, I'll pull you down with my own hands. Yiguchen's eyes surged with a cold light. He vaguely felt that he would soon meet his destined enemy again. At that time, the hatred of Su Jianxu's sword and the loss of his innate sword embryo, Yiguchen was going to pay with his own blood. Chapter 623. As the tens of thousands of people in the arena dispersed, everything that had happened today would sweep through the entire dynasty at an extremely fast speed like a storm. Of course, Yiguchen, who was at the center of the storm, was undoubtedly the most eye-catching existence. With the cultivation of the divine soul realm, he had crushed and killed Zhou Tong, who was at the life and death chamber. Facing Emperor Ling, Grandma Shichuan and the other divine palace experts, he had mercilessly berated them. Even the illusory figures of Zhan Huang, Xian Wuji, and the others could not suppress Yiguchen. Instead, their illusory figures were destroyed. The revelation of Yiguchen's identity had also shocked everyone. The young king of the barbarian race was an honorable title. He was destined to become the true king of the barbarian race in the future. In other words, he was equivalent to the ruler of a country. After all, the barbarian race's strength was enough to contend against the 7 major forces and the Saint Origin dynasty. However, Yiguchen's action of stopping the war had won him the hearts of the people. At least, they would not be prejudiced against Yiguchen because of his identity as the young king of the barbarian race. Northern Liang City, Sword Sect Pagoda Forest's encampment. In just one day, the scene outside Sword Sect Pagoda Forest's encampment had changed drastically. Previously, the disciples of Limitless Sword Sect and other forces had mercilessly stood outside, mocking and ridiculing the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. However, one day later, the disciples of the major forces had silently disappeared outside Sword Sect Pagoda Forest's encampment. The passers-by, without exception, cast respectful gazes at the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. To be precise, they were in awe of Yiguchen. Everyone knew that Yiguchen had become a powerful figure and was not someone that anyone could deal with. At least in the Saint Origin dynasty, no one dared to provoke Yiguchen. After all, no force could withstand the fury of the barbarian race alone. In the encampment, all the disciples of Sword Sect Pagoda Forest were cheering. They were extremely excited and felt elated. A group of people were gathered in the inner tower of the encampment. "Your Highness, are you really not going to let us follow you?" Wan Yanlan asked. "Your Highness, let me stay by your side. If the War Emperor and the others take action, I can do my part," Heaven Barbarian King said in a low, muffled voice. Although he said that, he still wanted to follow Yiguchen and obtain the ancient god's blood. "There's no need. I don't think they're stupid enough to attack me immediately." Yiguchen shook his head slightly. He didn't want Wan Yanlan and the others to stay by his side. The first reason was that he had to return to Lotus Village. The location of Lotus Village was a secret. Although Wan Yanlan was loyal to him, it was best to hide it. Secondly, Wan Yanlan had said that if the War Emperor, Xian Wuji, or even the Yuan Master wanted to attack him, they would have to consider the consequences of angering the barbarian tribe. Thirdly, Yiguchen still had one last layer of protection, which was Xiaohe. After it was unsealed, it would have the combat power of a venerable one. If the Battle Emperor and the rest really wanted to attack him, Yiguchen would let them know the meaning of regret. "Your Highness." Wan Yanlan still wanted to say something. Yiguchen waved his hand slightly and said, "Now that the contract has been established, there are still a lot of things for you to deal with. You just have to lead the barbarian tribe well. If there's a need, I'll summon you." After saying that, Yiguchen raised his hand and put large amounts of ancient god's blood into a jade bottle. There was a large space in the jade bottle, which was similar to a vital ring. With so much ancient god's blood, it should be enough for the barbarian tribe to cultivate for a long time. Yiguchen handed the jade bottle to Wan Yanlan. "Thank you, Your Highness." Wan Yanlan and Heaven Barbarian King both bowed. "Well, you can go now," Yiguchen said. Wan Yanlan and Heaven Barbarian King nodded slightly and then left. Feng Manlu and the others were also in the building. Yi Guchen, I didn't expect you to have such an adventure in the barbarian tribe, Feng Manlu said with a faint smile. It's just an opportunity, Yi Guchen said. By the way, it's almost time for the battle at the top of the Forbidden City. It'll be held in a few months. Feng Manlu's tone was slightly serious. Yi Guchen's expression became serious. A few months later, it was almost time for the preliminaries of the battlefield of geniuses. Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, Chu Qingqi, Yi Xia, and the other disciples were in the building. When they heard this, their faces became serious. Especially Yan Wushuang. Her previous obsession was to become Feng Manlu's successor and help him win the battle at the Forbidden City. She wanted to defeat Yu Bufan's disciple. As a result, the heavy responsibility fell on Yi Guchen's shoulders. How strong is Gu Zun now? Yi Guchen was a little curious. He had not interacted much with Gu Zun. The only time they met was when Gu Zun displayed extraordinary strength in the ancient battle arena. After returning to northern Liang City, Yi Guchen also heard about Gu Zun's achievements. Gu Zun had broken through to the Grand Profound Martial Gate with his perseverance and countless killings. As for Xian Hao, the young war emperor, Zhou Tong, and the others, they had all broken through to the Minor Profound Martial Gate with the intent of life and death. The difference in strength and talent was obvious. Not to mention that the story of dragging the blade for 3,000 miles and severing the Profound Martial Gate in one move had already spread throughout the dynasty. Very strong. You can kill Zhou Tong now, but Gu Zun might be able to do the same, Yan Wushuang said solemnly. Ji Ling and the others also had a worried expression. It wasn't that they didn't believe in Yi Guchen, but Gu Zun's talent and strength were indeed not inferior to Yi Guchen's. Yu Bufan's eyes are indeed good. His disciple has inherited a peerless blade and has surpassed his master. But I also believe in my own eyes. Feng Manlu's tone was indifferent, as if he wasn't too worried. Yi Guchen smiled faintly. This is interesting. I have a feeling that the battle with Gu Zun might be my opportunity to break through the life and death Profound Martial Gate. Break through the life and death Profound Martial Gate. Yan Wushuang and the others were astonished. Yi Guchen was only at the Divine Soul stage, but he could already crush ordinary minor Profound Martial Gates. If he broke through to the Grand Profound Martial Gate, wouldn't he be able to compete with spiritual bridge experts? Yes, it's good that you're confident. In addition, I'll tell you a little about the battlefield of heavenly prides, said Feng Manlu. Yi Guchen's eyes narrowed as he listened attentively. This was also what he wanted to know. The South Horizon region is vast. If we count the dynasties, there are at least 100 of them, said Feng Manlu. 100 dynasties. Yi Guchen was a little surprised. He had been cultivating in the Saint Origin dynasty, so he didn't know much about the outside world. But he had an agreement with his aunt, Xuansu, and he had to find out about his identity and his father's whereabouts. After rescuing Su Jianshi, Yi Guchen would have to leave the Saint Origin dynasty and head to a wider world. The 100 dynasties can be regarded as the cornerstone of the South Horizon region. The Saint Origin dynasty is only a low-level dynasty. Divine dwelling experts can roam freely and become the master of a sect. The intermediate dynasties have sovereigns of the heavenly palace realm. As for the higher-level dynasties, they have top sovereigns and even false saint experts. False saint. Yi Guchen was a little surprised. He had seen the might of a saint expert before. The battle between the heavenly pupil king and the chaotic world demonic ape had caused the sky to shatter and the earth to crack. Even if a false saint expert wasn't as strong as a true saint expert, they wouldn't be weak. Of course, the top existences in the South Horizon region aren't the higher-level dynasties, but the overlord forces with saints. For example, Feng Manlu paused for a moment before continuing. Starry Sword Pavilion. Chapter 624. Starry Sword Pavilion. Yi Guchen's eyes were deep, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The enmity between him and Gu Xiaoyang was irreconcilable. Therefore, he was destined to be on the opposite side of the Starry Sword Pavilion. Yi Guqin knew that the Starry Sword Pavilion that Gu Xiaoyang belonged to was extraordinary, but he did not expect it to be this strong. It was an overlord-class force that had a saint. The power of a Heaven Tribulation Realm saint was needless to say. Strictly speaking, the barbarian race could also become an overlord-class force if the Heavenly Pupil King was revived. After all, a saint was equivalent to a top force. However, it was obviously not that easy to revive the Heavenly Pupil King. Phew! Yi Guqin let out a sigh of relief. His expression was calm. Compared to the Starry Sword Pavilion, the 3 imperial palaces, the Limitless Sword Sect, and the Saint Origin Academy were nothing. It was no wonder that Gu Xiaoyang had such a high and mighty attitude. Indeed, if the Starry Sword Pavilion wanted to, it would be easy to wipe out a low-level dynasty like the Saint Origin dynasty. Perhaps in Gu Xiaoyang's eyes, Yi Guqin had always been a frog at the bottom of a well in a low-level dynasty. The atmosphere in the building was slightly gloomy. Yan Wushuang and the others were also silent. They knew about the enmity between Yi Guqin and Gu Xiaoyang. When they thought that Yi Guqin would face the Starry Sword Pavilion in the future, even Yan Wushuang and the others felt suffocated. It was almost impossible. While everyone was silent, Feng Manlu spoke again. Yi Guqin, you still have a chance. As long as you join an overlord-class force, you will have the background to contend with Gu Xiaoyang. Feng Manlu said. His words made Yan Wushuang and the others' faces change slightly. Yi Guqin was now a disciple of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. Feng Manlu's words meant that he wanted Yi Guqin to leave the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest and join another force. Senior Feng, you. Yi Guqin paused. The great rock rises with the wind and soars 90,000 miles into the sky. No matter if it's the Sword Sect, Pagoda Forest or Saint Origin Dynasty, they're all too small for you. I, Feng Manlu, can only protect you in my dynasty. In the future, you'll still have to soar through the 9 heavens. Feng Manlu smiled, he didn't care at all. Yi Guqin will never forget Senior Feng's kindness. Yi Guqin cupped his fists towards Feng Manlu. There were very few people that Yi Guqin truly admired. Feng Manlu was definitely one of them. After paying so much, their only request was for Yi Guqin to participate in the Battle of the Forbidden City. Yi Guqin felt that he had done too little. This also made Yi Guqin determined that he had to help Feng Manlu obtain victory in the sword and saber duel on the Forbidden City summit. Alright, Yi Guqin, the biggest chance for you to be chosen by an overlord force is the Battle of the Geniuses. The Prime Master might have other intentions, but he's right. There are too many elites from over 100 dynasties, so it's impossible for them to participate in the Battle of the Geniuses. So, they'll be divided into groups. More than 10 dynasties will be divided into groups and the preliminary round will be held. Only the winners will be qualified to participate in the Battle of the Geniuses. The Battle of the Geniuses is extremely dangerous and cruel. Countless geniuses have lost their lives. However, those who stand out in the Battle of the Geniuses may be listed on the Dragon Phoenix ranking and be noticed by the overlords, Feng Manlu said. I see. Yi Guqin finally understood. If he wanted revenge and didn't get killed, his only chance was to stand out in the Battle of the Geniuses and gain the favor of the overlords. The Starry Sword Pavilion wasn't the only overlord force in the Nantian region. For example, the Luofu Sword Pavilion. There was also Dongfang Ziyun, who Yi Guqin met in the Tianhuang Plains. She was from the Dongfang family, which should also be an overlord. As long as Yi Guqin joined an overlord force and became an existence similar to the Son of Saint, he would have enough confidence to deal with Gu Xiaoyang. After warning him, Feng Manlu also left. The others, such as Chu Qingqi and Yi Xia, looked at Yan Wushuang and left. Ji Ling's expression was slightly complicated, but she also knew that she should leave some time for Yan Wushuang. Ji Ling left quietly. Yan Wushuang bit her lip slightly. Yi Guqin looked at Yan Wushuang with a calm expression. She was wearing a skirt armor as usual. Her slender figure was especially beautiful, especially her round and fair legs. Why do you always like to leave quietly like this? You make people so worried. Yan Wushuang's face was slightly red. No one knew if it was because of embarrassment or something else. Sorry, I have something to do, Yi Guqin said. Will you really leave the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest in the future? You're already a role model for the disciples in the sect. Yan Wushuang's words contained a trace of disappointment. The grudge between Gu Xiaoyang and me is irreconcilable. If I stay, it won't be good for the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. Yi Guqin shook his head and smiled faintly. Why do you have to do such a dangerous thing? Even if you can take revenge and kill Gu Xiaoyang, the Starry Sword Pavilion will never let you go. Yan Wushuang couldn't help but ask. She was worried about Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin smiled and said, life is for the sake of a breath. As a sword cultivator, it's even more so. So what if you're from the Starry Sword Pavilion? So what if you're a saint? No one can bend my spine. Yi Guqin's eyes shone with pride. It wasn't arrogance or arrogance. It was the unyielding pride of a sword cultivator. Yan Wushuang's eyes were slightly blurred. She had always been stubborn and didn't lose to men. She rarely admired anyone, but Yi Guqin had won her over. You should go to the Lingxi Palace. I'm sure Zither Fairy wants to see you. Yan Wushuang lowered her head slightly, not letting Yi Guqin see her blurred eyes. Yi Guqin sighed and left. Yan Wushuang's delicate body suddenly softened after Yi Guqin left. Her eyes seemed to sparkle. Shuang really regrets it. If only we could meet again. Yan Wushuang bit her lips bitterly. She and Yi Guqin had an unpleasant beginning. Now, even if Yi Guqin didn't care about it, Yan Wushuang couldn't truly walk into his heart. Shuang On the other side, Ji Ling, who was standing outside the door, sighed. Yi Guqin arrived at the Lingxi Palace's encampment. No one stopped Yi Guqin and he saw Zither Fairy directly. Zither Fairy was playing the zither. Her figure was quiet and reserved, as beautiful as a painting. When she saw Yi Guqin, her beautiful eyes were filled with surprise and she smiled slightly. If I came back earlier, maybe you wouldn't have suffered so much. Yi Guqin sighed. It's okay. It's good that you're here. Zither Fairy smiled as if she was satisfied. Yi Guqin was silent for a moment, not knowing what to say. Zither Fairy pursed her lips and said, Mr. Yi, did you go to the barbarian race for Miss Su? Zither Fairy had also experienced what happened at the Tianhuang Plains elite meeting. Yi Guqin nodded faintly. Only a sacred medicine can wake her up. Miss Su is a very good woman. She didn't hesitate to risk her life in front of Mr. Yi. She deserves Mr. Ye's treatment. Yi Guqin was silent. Thank you for coming to see Zither Fairy. You should go save Miss Su. Zither Fairy smiled. Then. Goodbye. Yi Guqin glanced at Zither Fairy. He wanted to say something but stopped. In the end, he just sighed and turned to leave. A drop of tear fell from Zither Fairy's cheek and dripped onto the zither strings. She had a smile of blessing on her lips. There was a kind of love called letting go. Chapter 625. As soon as they walked out of the Rhino Divine Palace's encampment, Yi Guqin saw the black-clothed figure standing on the roof. Yi Guqin, you're quite popular with women, Su Moyan said in a flat tone. We're almost done here. Let's go. Yi Guqin didn't want to drag things out. The longer he dragged things out, the more guilty he felt. Okay. Su Moyan nodded. After returning to the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest to prepare, Yi Guqin took the Divine Eagle and Blackie and rode on a flying demonic beast with Su Moyan. As soon as they flew out of northern Yang City, Feng Manlu's figure stood in the void. I'll accompany you to prevent anyone from following you, Feng Manlu said. Thank you, Senior Feng. Yi Guchen cupped his hands. Feng Manlu was very considerate to personally escort Yi Guchen. Humph. This Feng Manlu, not long after Yi Guchen and the others left, the Flame Emperor, Xian Tai, Lord Huntian, and the others appeared in the void outside northern Yang City. Their expressions were somewhat ugly. Although they weren't stupid enough to attack Yi Guchen directly, it was necessary to know his whereabouts. Now that Feng Manlu was personally escorting them, they couldn't follow them. Yi Guchen is too arrogant. He won't live for long. Emperor Ling's figure also appeared, his face incomparably cold. Let the Sword Sect's pagoda forest jump around for a while. Sect Master's strength isn't what you think it is. Xian Tai's eyes were cold. A few days after Yi Guchen left, the 7 major forces in northern Yang City began to withdraw to their respective sections. The war in the Great Desolate Mansion finally came to an end. The war that had lasted for a long time finally came to an end. 4 days later, Yi Guchen and the others arrived at the border of the Saint Origin dynasty on a flying demonic beast. Okay, I'll stop here. There's no one following us, Feng Manlu said faintly. Many thanks to Senior Feng. Yi Guchen cupped his hands. After that, Yi Guchen, Su Moyan, the Divine Eagle, and Blackie rode on the flying demonic beast and continued to fly towards Lotus Village. The Lotus Village was located at the border of the Saint Origin dynasty, among the endless mountains. 2 days later, Yi Guchen and Su Moyan arrived at Lotus Village. Yi Guchen looked into the distance. There was a col between 2 steep mountains in front of him. Yi Guchen and Su Moyan landed in front of the mountain peak. Su Moyan stepped forward and removed the illusory array. A winding path appeared in front of Yi Guchen's eyes. There were many wooden buildings, which were arranged in rows. You're finally back. Yi Guchen sighed deeply. The last time he was here seemed to have been yesterday. How nostalgic. On Yi Guchen's left shoulder, the divine condor clicked its tongue inside. On his right shoulder, Little Black squeaked. Yi Guchen followed Su Moyan into Lotus Village. The first thing he saw was 3 familiar figures. Qin Baijian, Mo Yunzi, and the Spring Cloud Pavilion Master. These 3 Bridge of Heaven and Earth experts, who had chased after Yi Guchen, were now peacefully cultivating in Lotus Village. Seeing the arrival of Yi Guchen, the 3 powerhouses also revealed a look of surprise. Yi Guchen ignored them. He was focused on saving Su Jianshi. Whoosh! 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 As soon as Yi Guchen entered, a group of figures flew toward him. Yi Guchen looked around. Lang Lihua, Feng Jiao, Su Qiqiao, and the other villagers had all gathered. Big Brother Yi, Big Brother Su, you're all here. Did you bring back the sacred herb? Su Qiqiao's big eyes flashed with anticipation. Before Yi Guchen could say anything, a petite figure threw herself into Yi Guchen's arms. Taking a closer look, it was a cute silver-haired girl. It was none other than Shui. Big brother, you're back. Can you save big sister Su? Shui blinked her big watery eyes. Yi Guchen looked at Shui with surprise in his eyes. The sword intent on Shui's body was stronger than before. Yi Guchen even felt that the Shura sword intent in her body was stronger than his own. There was another sword intent that carried a deathly stillness and extermination. It was also very strong. However, these 2 sword intents were hidden deep in Shui's body. Only someone like Yi Guchen, who was extremely sensitive to swords and also had sword intent, could detect them. Yi Guchen, you're finally here. In the distance, a middle-aged man in a white linen robe and a muscular man with a big hammer on his back appeared. It was the Dragon Abyss village chief and Ghost Axe. There was also a trace of anticipation on their faces. Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. Yi Guchen cupped his hands. Ha, you actually obtained the sacred medicine. Dragon Abyss revealed a gratified look. He didn't have high hopes for Yi Guchen in the beginning, but Yi Guchen's performance far exceeded his expectations. A ginseng with a 7-colored luster appeared in Yiguchen's hand. The dense medicinal aura even vaguely condensed into a 7-colored dragon. Good, good. The 7-colored jade dragon ginseng is not only a sacred medicine, but also a sacred healing medicine. It's best to use it to treat Dragon Abyss took the 7-colored jade dragon ginseng and said, I need to refine this 7-colored jade dragon ginseng into a cauldron of great medicine. Go and see her. With that, Dragon Abyss, Ghost Axe, and the others hurriedly went to refine the medicine. Yiguchen was led to the Sword Heart Spring by Shui, and the others. It was also the place where Su Jianshi was sleeping. The spring water gurgled and spiritual aura surged. An ancient sword was inserted diagonally into the cliff. The spring water flowed down with the sword Dao permeating the air. In the spring water, a beautiful woman in green clothes quietly bobbed up and down. Only her face was exposed. She was like a lotus that had emerged from clear water, a natural sculpture. Yiguchen's footsteps paused. His expression was complicated. That kind of feeling, perhaps it was guilt, perhaps it was self-blame. Yiguchen boasted that his sword heart was unwavering and that he had never let anyone down. However, he had let down 2 women. One was sleeping here, and the other was forgetting about the world. Behind him, Su Moyan secretly signaled Shui, Su Qiqiao, and the others to leave. Su Moyan took a deep look at Su Jianshi and also left with a sigh. Only Yiguchen was left in the Sword Heart Spring. Sigh, Yiguchen's expression was complicated as he stepped into the water. He landed beside Su Jianshi. The sleeping girl's face was as sweet as ever. Her facial features were exquisite. She had an oval face, a jade nose, and cherry lips. Perhaps it was because she was submerged in the water or because she was weak from her long sleep. The girl's body was extremely thin and her skin was sickly pale without any trace of blood. His breathing was extremely weak, so weak that it made one's heart ache. Su Jianshi, Yiguchen reached out his hand. It was only an inch away from Su Jianshi's face, but he suddenly stopped. Tears were flowing down from the girl's eyes. Did I dream of something? Yiguchen retracted his hand and blamed himself. Sometimes, even with a sword in hand, he couldn't save the person he wanted to save. If he was stronger, if he had the strength to crush Gu Xiaoyang, then this tragedy wouldn't have happened. Gu Xiaoyang, I swear that I will return Su Jianshi's sword in the future. Yiguchen's eyes were cold. Chapter 626. A few days later, Long Yuan used the 7-colored jade dragon ginseng and several quasi-saint herbs to refine a 7-colored pill. Almost everyone in Lotus Village had gathered around the Sword Heart Spring. Lang Lihua, Feng Jiao, Su Qiqiao, Su Moyan, Shui, Gue Fu, and the others were standing to the side. Long Yuan took out the 7-colored pill and handed it to Yiguchen. Chief, this. Yiguchen was stunned. You do it. I'm sure Su would like you to be the first person she sees, said Long Yuan with a smile. Yiguchen took the pill and glanced at Su Moyan. Su Moyan had also put in a lot of effort. Go. Su Moyan's eternally unchanging iceberg face revealed a rare trace of a faint smile. Yiguchen nodded and walked to Su Jianshi's side. He took the pill and parted her lips. An extremely pure and gentle medicinal energy spread out from Su Jianshi's body. Although the medicinal energy was vigorous, it wasn't violent at all. Instead, it was like the spring rain, silently moisturizing everything. It was clear that Long Yuan was also an extremely skilled alchemist. Even Yiguchen could feel a dense vitality flowing through Su Jianshi's body. Most of them were gathered at his heart. Her heart was where Su Jianshi was injured. If it wasn't for the mysterious golden sword shadow in her heart, Su Jianshi's heart would have been pierced by the innate sword embryo. At this moment, the vigorous medicinal energy had gathered in Su Jianshi's heart. Suddenly, the sound of a sword rang out from Su Jianshi's heart. The golden sword shadow appeared once again. It seemed to have absorbed the medicinal power and became even more distinct. At the same time, the sword engraved with countless ancient characters on the cliff of the sword heart spring trembled as if it was resonating. Not good. Long Yuan's expression changed. He and Gue Fu exchanged a glance and made a move at the same time. A divine palace expert's majestic true qi spread out and enveloped the entire sword heart spring. Su Jianchu's body began to tremble. The power of the sacred medicine healed her damaged heart. But at the same time, it also nourished the silent golden sword shadow. Buzz! Countless golden rune chains appeared on the surface of the golden sword shadow, as if they were some kind of seal. It's that sword shadow again. Yi Guqin's eyes narrowed. It was the sword shadow sealed in Su Jianchu's heart. It had blocked the innate sword embryo's attack and saved her life. Since it was able to contend against the connate sword embryo, the golden sword shadow was clearly no ordinary object. As time passed, the sacred medicine's power spread, and the vitality in Su Jianchu's body grew denser. Her aura also rose steadily. The spiritual energy in the surroundings of the sword heart spring seemed to have been ignited. It turned into a vortex and gathered towards Su Jianchu's body. Hidden gate of life and death. A few villagers revealed astonished expressions. Su Jianchu was about to break through the life and death threshold. Long Yuan and the others were not surprised by this. The hidden latch of life and death could be broken through on the line between life and death, penetrating the sea of qi and sea of consciousness. Su Jianchu had been on the brink of life and death. With the help of the sacred medicine, it wasn't strange for her to break through the life and death threshold. Moreover, Su Jianchu would become an expert of the Great Hidden Gate. Yi Guqin wasn't happy about this. If possible, Yi Guqin would rather Su Jianchu not experience this life and death crisis. Boom! Vaguely, the sound of glass shattering could be heard from Su Jianchu's body. That was the sound of her sea of consciousness and qi connecting. It meant that Su Jianchu had become an expert of the Great Hidden Gate. Boom! Another violent explosion sounded. The golden sword shadow in Su Jianchu's heart suddenly broke through the endless chains and emitted a divine light. The ancient sword on the cliff abruptly flew out and merged with the golden sword shadow. Bang! Like a sudden clap of thunder, a vast and terrifying golden sword qi was emitted from the ancient sword. After fusing with the golden sword shadow, the ancient sword, which was still very simple and old, immediately blossomed with golden light. Countless ancient runes and patterns spread across the sword. Countless phantoms of living beings appeared on the ancient sword, accompanied by the sound of Sanskrit chanting. Rumble. Not good. Long Yuan and Gue Fu's expressions changed. Their true qi barriers couldn't block the lightning at all. Whoosh! The ancient golden sword streaked across the sky as if it could cut through the heavens. The terrifying lightning tribulation was scattered. Could that be a divine weapon of tribulation? No, it's stronger than a divine weapon of tribulation. Yi Guqin was also surprised. After being baptized by the lightning tribulation, it could be called a divine weapon of tribulation. However, the ancient golden sword didn't seem to have been baptized. Instead, it directly broke through the lightning tribulation. A terrifying golden sword qi that was thousands of feet long stood between heaven and earth and swept out in all directions. Around Lotus Village, mountains, and forests, a storm of sword qi swept out and didn't dissipate for a long time. Sigh. We've been exposed. Long Yuan and Gue Fu sighed. Their eyes were filled with worry. The ancient golden sword then retracted its light and landed beside Su Jianchu. Yi Guqin looked at the ancient golden sword. He suddenly remembered. In the past, when he was comprehending the enlightened sword heart here, he had vaguely sensed a saint sword that was emitting a golden brilliance floating in the vast sea. Its vast and supreme power was shocking. The only thing that could be compared to the golden holy sword was the one that Yi Guqin had seen in the memory of the heaven-devouring beast's demonic core. It was the demonic sword that could devour heaven and earth. A primordial sword. These words suddenly appeared in Yiguchen's mind. However, although this ancient golden sword was powerful and far surpassed the blood hell sword, it wasn't at the level of a primordial sword. Even a primordial sword on the earth ranking should be stronger than this sword. Yiguchen's eyes were deep. It seemed that this ancient golden sword was the secret. Woo! A faint voice could be heard. Yiguchen's figure suddenly landed beside Su Jianshi and held her delicate body with both hands. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly. A pair of clear, translucent eyes, untainted by even a speck of dust, slowly opened. There was a hint of bewilderment in his eyes. The surrounding villagers were overjoyed, but they all tacitly agreed not to make a sound. In the silence, Su Jianshi's eyes gradually converged and finally met Yiguchen's eyes. Their eyes lingered. 10,000 years. Is it a dream again? Why is it always you, silly boy? Su Jianshi smiled. As she smiled, tears fell from the corners of her eyes. This was because it had happened thousands of times in her dreams. Therefore, Su Jianshi was already used to it. She even thought that it was a dream. Su Jianshi. Yiguchen sighed with a complicated expression. He couldn't imagine. How long had she been asleep? How many times had she dreamed of it? Only then could she blur reality into a dream. Silly boy, you're finally calling me. Although it's a dream, I'm still very happy. Su Jianshi smiled brightly. She wanted to raise her hand, but she was powerless. Yiguchen held Su Jianshi's hand. It's not a dream. Yiguchen sighed. An indescribable feeling rose in his heart. He owed this young girl too much. Chapter 627. It's not a dream. Why did you lie to me? How could it not be a dream? I saw you again and again, and then my figure shattered. Su Jianshi choked as tears fell from the corner of her eyes. It's not a dream. Su Jianshi, I'm sorry for making you sleep for so long. The more Su Jianshi acted like this, the more complicated Yiguchen felt. That innocent girl with a bright smile on her face. Why did she become so weak? Su Jianshi, look, Yiguchen helped Su Jianshi up. Su Jianshi looked around blankly. Longyuan village chief, Uncle Ghost Axe, Brother Su, Sister Qiqiao, Shui, Uncle Lang, Auntie Fengjiao. You're all here. Su Jianshi covered her mouth with her hand as tears fell like rain. She could imagine how it felt like she was going to die. In the end, everyone close to her appeared in front of her. I'm sorry for making you wait for so long. Yiguchen said bitterly. He owed her too much. Su girl. Longyuan and the others were gratified. Sister Su, you're finally awake. Su Qiqiao and Shui, couldn't help but rush forward and hug Su Jianshi as they cried. Sister, Su Moyan walked forward with a smile. To be able to see Su Jianshi wake up, the blood he shed was nothing. It's true, it's true. Su Jianshi choked as her body trembled. She turned to look at Yiguchen, her eyes red. Silly boy, you made me sleep for so long. Su Jianshi cried and laughed. She seemed to be complaining, but she didn't blame him at all. As long as she could wake up and see the person she wanted to see, it was enough. Nothing else mattered. Su Jianshi was easily satisfied. Then, everyone tactfully left the sword heart spring, leaving Su Jianshi and Yiguchen alone. The spring water tinkled as the atmosphere quietened down. Yiguchen sighed, promise me that you won't do this again. I can't help it. I'm a chivalrous woman. It's nothing to help. Su Jianshi pretended to be relaxed, but her smile was weak and pale. It was so pale that it made one's heart ache. However, the small matter that she spoke of could cost her life. This was something Yiguchen could not bear. Promise me. Yiguchen placed his hands on Su Jianshi's shoulders and looked straight at her. Su Jianshi blushed as she looked up at Yiguchen's handsome face. All right, this young lady understands, but in his heart, he was saying that it was impossible. Su Jianshi was willing to do anything for Yi Guqin. Su Jianshi seemed to have thought of something, and a wisp of a sweet smile appeared on the corners of her mouth. Silly kid, does your promise to me still count? Vice Alliance Master. Yi Guqin said after some thought. Su Jianshi nodded in silence. I'm willing. In the future, I will establish a righteous alliance. A righteous alliance so powerful that no one will be able to harm you. You will be the alliance leader, and I will be the vice alliance leader. Yi Guqin said resolutely. In the past, Su Jianshi called herself a chivalrous woman and wanted to establish a righteous alliance to help the weak. It seemed like a joke, but Yi Guqin swore that he would make it a reality. Because this was what Su Jianshi wanted. Su Jianshi revealed a sweet smile that was filled with satisfaction. This was enough. She didn't ask for too much, and she didn't even ask for it to come true. As long as Yi Guqin had the intention, it was enough. Her gaze then fell on the ancient golden sword beside her, and the smile on her face dimmed. What's wrong? Yi Guqin asked. I remember. I remember everything. Su Jianshi slowly opened her hand, and the ancient golden sword fell into her hand as if it was summoned. At this moment, Long Yuan, Gue Fu, and Su Moyan appeared once more. Why? Su Jianshi's smile disappeared. It was replaced by a sadness that Yi Guqin had never seen before. He had never seen such a sad expression on Su Jianshi's face. Little sister, I asked village chief Long Yuan to make the worry-free water for you to drink, said Su Moyan. Miss, you were too sad at that time. If you continued, it would only hurt your mind. Young master was thinking for you, so he let you drink the worry-free water to forget those painful memories. Long Yuan sighed deeply. He had also changed the way he addressed Su Jianshi. He now called Su Jianshi, Miss, and Su Moyan, Young Master. Yi Guqin's expression darkened. He had thought that Lotus Village was very mysterious. It was clearly a remote village, but it had a divine palace expert like Long Yuan. The other villagers were also experts and had quasi-saint medicines and other precious items. Such a village was obviously not ordinary. But Yi Guqin was an outsider at that time, so he didn't ask too much. Can I forget everything after drinking the worry-free water? I remember everything while I was asleep. Su Jianshi's expression was bleak. It was easy to imagine why the once innocent Su Jianshi would have such an expression. Su Moyan took a deep breath and said to Yi Guqin, do you know why I was prejudiced against you before? It's because my little sister has an old enemy. His strength is far beyond your expectations, so I thought you couldn't help my little sister. That's why I didn't like you. Although in my eyes, you still can't deal with him, I believe in you. I'll tell you the truth about Lotus Village and our identities, said Su Moyan solemnly. Yi Guqin nodded slightly. This meant that everyone in Lotus Village, including Su Moyan and the others, completely believed in Yi Guqin. They treated Yi Guqin as one of their own. No need to tell him. This has nothing to do with him. Su Jianshi hurriedly said. Please speak. Yi Guqin patted Su Jianshi's shoulder and motioned for Su Moyan to continue. Su Moyan took a deep breath and said, Yi Guqin, you should know. Yi Guqin, you know that the real dominators of the South Horizon region are the Overlord-level forces. For example, your enemy Gu Xiaoyang is from the Overlord-level force, Star Sword Pavilion. The forces that my little sister and I came from were also Overlord forces. They are the Su family, one of the 5 Overlord clans of the South Horizon region. The 5 Overlord clans. Yi Guqin's eyes flashed. He had already encountered people from the Dongfang family of the 5 great overlords. The sovereign cave abode was left behind by the Baiming family. Now, Su Moyan was saying that the Su family was also an overlord clan. This exceeded Yi Guqin's expectations. Although he knew that Su Jianshi and the others had extraordinary identities, he didn't expect them to be from an overlord clan. Yi Guchen, you came from the Saint Origin dynasty, so there are some things you don't understand. The true peak forces of the South Horizon region are the one mountain, one ocean, one immortal valley, 3 sects, 4 pavilions, and 5 families. One mountain, one ocean, one immortal valley, 3 sects, 4 pavilions, and 5 families. Yi Guchen muttered to himself. Chapter 628. Yi Guchen didn't know much about the Nantian region. However, Su Moyan used to be a member of the Su family, so he knew the distribution of power in the Nantian region. He said, one mountain, one sea, and one celestial valley represent the 3 hidden powers. They're very mysterious and rarely accept disciples from the outside world. Generally speaking, they don't get involved in the disputes of the Nantian region. Yi Guchen's eyes flashed when he heard that. He thought of the Sky Mountain that Ying Ning mentioned. Her lover came from Sky Mountain and had the same cultivation technique as Yi Guchen. It was the Universal Sword Codex. Could that mountain be Sky Mountain? The Universal Sword Codex was passed down to me by my father. What does my father have to do with Sky Mountain? Yi Guchen thought to himself. Su Moyan spoke again, let's not talk about the 3 hidden powers. The real overlords of the Nantian region are the 3 sects, 4 pavilions, and 5 families. The Starry Sword Pavilion, where your nemesis Gu Xiaoyang is from, is one of the 4 pavilions. Yi Guchen nodded. He knew a little about this. The Starry Sword Pavilion was one of the 4 sword pavilions. The Luofu Sword Pavilion was also one of them. In addition, the 8th grade genius Yi Yue, who Gu Xiaoyang said wanted to dual cultivate with him with an innate sword embryo, came from the Misty Sword Pavilion. Other than that, there are the 3 sections. The nemesis of the Su family is from the Heavenly God Sword sect. When Su Moyan said this, his eyes were faintly suffused with a blood-red glow. Su Jianshi seemed to have recalled something. She closed her eyes in pain and frowned. She seemed to be in extreme pain and misery. The Heavenly God Sword sect. Yi Guchen thought to himself. The cause of everything, the cause of the Su family's destruction, and the culprit who forced my sister and me to flee to a remote dynasty, is the Emperor of the Heavenly God Sword sect, Di Haotian, the true dragon of Haotian. Long Yuan, Guifu, and the others fell silent when they heard the name Di Haotian. Su Jianshi couldn't help but squat on the ground and cry in pain. How strong is Di Haotian? Why did he attack your Su family? Yi Guchen asked solemnly as he looked at Su Jianshi, who was sobbing to the point her shoulders were trembling. Strong, very strong, so strong that it makes one despair. Su Moyan gritted his teeth. It was easy to imagine, given Su Moyan's cold temperament, how strong was the person who could make him speak with such despair. You can't imagine how many identities Di Haotian has. He is the supreme son of the Heavenly God Sword sect. Young Master Hao Tian, one of the top 10 young masters of the South Horizon region. 10th rank sovereign prodigy, self-proclaimed heavenly true dragon, born with 3 great innate divine abilities. Rumor has it that his bloodline comes from one of the ancient 100 races. It's extremely mysterious. There's also news that he's an elite of the mysterious sword sect. With every sentence Su Moyan spoke, the atmosphere became a little quieter. In the end, everyone felt a suffocating pressure. Yi Guchen's expression turned serious. He had to admit that Di Haotian was truly a dragon amongst men. 10th rank sovereign prodigies were extremely rare, and there weren't many of them in the entire South Horizon region. Gu Xiaoyang had taken away Yi Guchen's innate sword origin, which was why he only had 2 talents. Di Haotian was born with 3 talents, and he was an elite of the sword sect. In the future, he would definitely be Yi Guchen's greatest enemy in the competition for the 9th generation sword sect. That Di Haotian boasted that his destiny was extraordinary and that he did not want to compete with mortals. Therefore, he did not want to be on the Dragon Phoenix list. However, if he was willing, his name would definitely be on the top few of the Dragon Phoenix list, Su Moyan said coldly. Then why did he have a grudge with your Su family? What does it have to do with Su Jianshi? Asked Yiguchen. At this point, Su Moyan's eyes were almost bloodshot. Long Yuan, Gue Fu, and the others also revealed unconcealable hatred. As I said, Di Haotian has 3 great innate superpowers. One of them is a sword. A sword? Yiguchen suddenly looked at the ancient golden sword beside Su Jianshi. That's right. When Di Haotian was born, there was an ancient sword in his body called the Heavenly Emperor Sword. It's because of the Heavenly Emperor Sword that Di Haotian calls himself the true Dragon of Haotian. Rumor has it that the Heavenly Emperor Sword was forged by a divine blacksmith in the primordial era, Emperor Xianyuan. Emperor Xianyuan forged a total of 3 primordial sacred weapons. The Heavenly Emperor Sword was forged with the power of heaven and the stars in the 9 heavens. The Earthly Emperor Sword was forged with 360 dragon veins. And the Human Emperor Sword was forged with the faith of all living beings. Rumor has it that if someone can fuse the 3 swords together, it will become the 7th-ranked primordial sacred sword, the Tri-Emperor Sacred Sword. The Tri-Emperor Sacred Sword. Yiguchen's eyes flickered. Primordial Sacred Swords, Heaven and Earth Rankings, 108 Divine Swords. The Tri-Emperor Sacred Sword was ranked 7th on the Earth Rankings. The 72 swords on the Earth Rankings were all created by divine blacksmiths or ancient sword emperors. The fact that it was ranked 7th was enough to prove the power of the Tri-Emperor Sacred Sword. Any one of the famed ancient swords possessed unparalleled power, and they were the goal of all the experts. Even if one wasn't a sword cultivator, they wouldn't be able to resist a primordial sacred sword. Could it be? Yiguchen suddenly looked at the ancient golden sword. He already knew that the ancient golden sword was extraordinary. It surpassed the tribulation divine weapon, but it wasn't at the level of a primordial sacred sword. My little sister's sword is the Renhuang sword. She obtained it by chance in a secret realm. Famed swords generally have spirituality and will automatically choose their masters. The Renhuang sword is extremely close to my little sister, and it can even fuse into her heart, Su Moyan said. But after that, the news of little sister obtaining the human sovereign sword was accidentally leaked out. How could Di Haotian let go of this news? He was born with the Emperor Sword. Naturally, he wanted to obtain the Earth Sovereign Sword and the Human Sovereign Sword. Then, Di Haotian came to our Su family to propose marriage. Actually, everyone knew that he came for the Human Emperor Sword. But the Human Emperor Sword had already fused with my sister. If it was taken away, my sister would become a cripple even if she didn't die. Her cultivation path would be cut off. Our Su family naturally wouldn't agree. Then, the Heavenly God Sword sect secretly joined forces with the Dongfang family and other forces that had a grudge against our Su family to kill our saints. They even invited many forces to besiege the Su family. Su Moyan's expression was ferocious as blood seeped out of his teeth. Su Jianxi's face was extremely pale as her eyes trembled with hatred. In the end, it was my father who led us and some people from the Dragon Abyss to escape. Because the 3 Emperor Sacred Swords could vaguely sense each other, my father refined the Human Emperor Sword's spirit and fused it into my sister's heart. Then, he sealed it and gave the sword body to us to keep. Then, in order to cover our retreat, my father fought with the Heavenly God Sword sect and others. Then, he was besieged and his body was destroyed. Su Moyan paused, his voice trembling with hatred. Su Jianxi's lips were pale as she bit her teeth. Ah, former master. The divine condor sighed on Yiguchen's shoulder. It was rare for it to be in low spirits. Yiguchen suddenly looked at the majestic mountain behind Lotus Village. Chapter 629. Yiguchen remembered that the first time he met the divine condor was at the peak of the back mountain. The divine condor was guarding a cave, saying that it was a forbidden area in Lotus Village. Could it be? Yiguchen's doubts were finally solved. After that, we ran all over the place to avoid the pursuit of the Divine Sword sect and other forces. In the end, We escaped to this remote place. Because the human sovereign sword was sealed, Di Haotian was unable to detect my whereabouts. Su Moyan sighed. But this time, we'll have to move. The seal was broken when Miss woke up. The Emperor's sword's spirit and the sword's body completely merged. The fluctuation couldn't be concealed. Di Haotian might have noticed it. Long Yuan looked extremely worried. They had been strengthening the seal in Su Jianxu's heart to prevent the Emperor's sword's aura from spreading. Di Haotian had the Emperor's sword, so he could vaguely sense the aura of the Emperor's sword. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. My family's destruction, my father's physical body destroyed, and everyone's suffering here. It's all my fault. Su Jianxu clenched her jade-like hands. Her palms were pierced and blood flowed out between her fingers. What did you do wrong? It's Di Haotian's fault. Yi Guqin said. Su Jianxu still blamed herself and shook her head. Yi Guqin, please comfort Mississippi. I'm going to lead the villagers away. We can't stay here any longer. Long Yuan said. They had been living in seclusion for a long time, but this time, they had to wander around again. Then, Long Yuan and the others left to prepare for the relocation. This meant that Su Jianxu and the others would also leave. They wouldn't stay in Saint Origin Dynasty. As for Yi Guqin, there were still some things he had to deal with. The Battle of Blade and Sword on the Forbidden Violet Peak and the preliminaries of the Battlefield of Prodigies. The sword-seeking steel's remaining sky-splitting sword spirit and the venerable cave abode in the everlasting plain. Of course, the most important thing was the immemorial sword token and the secret of the eternal devil city in the bottomless demonic abyss. Because it might be related to the immemorial sword. Yi Guqin, thank you for saving me. You can leave now. Take Shui, and the others with you. Su Jianxu's tone suddenly turned cold. She turned her head away and gritted her teeth. Pretending to be indifferent doesn't suit you. Yi Guqin sighed. Su Jianxu didn't reply, but her eyes were red. Could it be that in your eyes, I am such a person? Yi Guqin shook his head and smiled. Su Jianxu wanted to chase him away since she didn't want Yi Guqin to be involved in this matter. Why? You're usually like a block of wood, but you're so gentle at a critical moment. Su Jianxu finally couldn't hold it in any longer. She suddenly pounced into Yi Guqin's embrace and burst into tears. Yi Guqin stood there silently, allowing Su Jianxu's tears to soak his clothes. Would Yi Guqin watch as Su Jianxu was persecuted by Di Haotian? Of course not. Not to mention, Di Haotian was part of the sword faction. They were destined to be enemies in the future. This was because only one prodigy could become the 9th-generation sword master. After a long time, Su Jianxu stopped crying and said with a trace of sadness, "Can you come with me to see my father?" Yi Guqin nodded slightly. At the back mountain of Lotus Village, Su Jianxu led Yi Guqin into the cave. This cave was guarded by the divine condor. It was a forbidden area of Lotus Village. The deeper he went into the cave, the more Yi Guqin felt a strong pressure. Even if it was just a remnant of the pressure, it was enough to make Yi Guqin fearful. The power of a saint. Yi Guqin was secretly shocked. Su Jianxu's father was a saint of the Su clan. Finally, at the end of the cave, there was a transparent crystal coffin. There was an extremely illusory figure lying in the crystal coffin. It was a middle-aged man in azure clothes. He was handsome and had a dignified aura. He vaguely resembled Su Jianxu. Father. Su Jianxu bit her lips. Tears fell, but she didn't dare to cry. She was afraid of disturbing her father. Yi Guqin had heard from Su Moyan that their father was called Su Qingyu. He was a saint of the Su clan with unparalleled talent. After being besieged by saints, his nascent soul was also heavily injured and fell into an eternal slumber. The nascent soul was a technique unique to saints. Even if the physical body was destroyed, the nascent soul could still exist. As for Ying Ning, although she wasn't a saint, her innate ability, the immortal soul pearl, allowed her to have a nascent soul like a saint. Father. Su Jianshi touched the crystal coffin and cried silently. Su Moyan quietly walked up from behind. He looked at Su Qingyu with a forlorn expression. Yi Guchen lowered his voice and asked, "Has uncle been sleeping like this all this time?" Su Moyan took a deep breath and nodded. That's right. Not only was father's physical body destroyed, but his nascent soul was also heavily injured. He can only stay in this coffin to prevent his nascent soul from dissipating. Is there no way to save him? Yi Guchen asked. Injuries to the physical body are easy to heal. However, injuries to the primordial spirit are extremely difficult to heal. Unless it is some heaven-defying medicinal liquid or a sacred medicine that specializes in healing the primordial spirit. However, how rare are those sacred medicines? Su Moyan sighed. Saint medicines were extremely rare, and saint medicines that could heal souls and nascent souls were even rarer. Even if they appeared, they would have been taken by saints long ago. They wouldn't be spread outside at all. Because that kind of sacred medicine was a life-saving straw for saints who possessed a primordial spirit. Yi Guchen's gaze deepened. He seemed to be thinking about something. Perhaps Senior Ning's immortal soul pearl can be useful, but there's nothing we can do now. Yi Guchen shook his head. But suddenly, he thought of his own spiritual sea. If he could find the chaos origin crystal and refine it into a spiritual sea, would it be able to help Su Qingyu recover his nascent soul? According to the 9 Tribulations Heart Sutra, if he cultivated a spiritual sea, his spiritual sea would become chaos origin crystal. Soul power would also transform into chaotic soul power, which would have all sorts of unimaginable uses. Its strength and purity would also far surpass ordinary spiritual sea. If he cultivated a spiritual sea and used chaos origin crystal to heal Su Qingyu's nascent soul, would that work? Yi Guchen's eyes flashed. He could give it a try. But Yi Guchen wasn't sure, so he didn't directly tell Su Jianshi and Su Moyan. If he gave them hope and they couldn't wake up, it would only be more painful. Yi Guchen didn't say anything, but he had already made up his mind. He needed to start investigating the whereabouts of the Chaos Origin Crystal and try to pass the Spiritual Sea Soul Tribulation as soon as possible. As long as he cultivated a spiritual sea, he would have an advantage whether it was healing Su Qingyu's nascent soul or fighting prime sovereigns on the Forbidden Violet Peak. Yi Guchen accompanied Su Jianshi while Long Yuan and the others prepared to move. But at the same time, tens of thousands of miles away from Lotus Village, a white-robed old man stood in the sky, his aura dense and indiscernible. But the faint trace of aura he revealed made the many powerful demonic beasts in the forest below not dare to act presumptuously and went into hibernation. At a certain moment, the white-robed old man's face lit up with joy. Ha, it really is that kind of sword chi. That's right. The human emperor's sword's aura was in this remote place. I searched the surrounding dynasties but couldn't find any clues. But I didn't expect that the heavens would not let me down. I finally sensed it. The white-robed old man looked up and laughed. He seemed to be very excited. The young master had vaguely sensed the human emperor's sword's aura a long time ago. But because it was too far away, it was a little blurry and he could only roughly pinpoint the location. As a result, the white-robed old man had searched the surrounding dynasties and wasted a lot of time. But now, just as he was about to give up and return to report, the human emperor's sword's aura appeared again, and the fluctuations were even more intense than before. The white-robed old man laughed and a terrifying aura swept out like a storm. It was a sky palace supremacy. When I eradicate the Su clan's remnants and obtain the human emperor's sword, I'll give it to the young master. I'm sure I'll receive a lot of benefits. The white-robed old man smiled faintly and flashed through the void, heading in the direction of the sword chi fluctuations. It was in the direction of Lotus Village. Chapter 630. For the next few days, Yi Guchen stayed by Su Jianshi's side. Long Yuan refined many nourishing pills and Su Jianshir's weak body gradually recovered. Physical injuries were easy to heal, but mental injuries were unforgettable. Yi Guqin looked at the girl who used to be as pure as a lotus, frowning all day long. Yi Guqin felt a chill towards Di Haotian from the bottom of his heart. I'm not strong enough, Yi Guqin sighed deeply in his heart. With his current strength and identity, no one in the Saint Origin dynasty dared to provoke him. But outside of the Saint Origin dynasty, in front of the Starry Sword Pavilion and Heavenly God's Sword sect, what was Yi Guqin? He was no bigger than an ant. One day, I will use the sword in my hand to clear away all the injustice in my heart. This was Yi Guqin's determination. While Yi Guqin was accompanying Su Jianshir, Long Yuan and the others had already ordered the villagers to pack up and prepare to move. The divine eagle took Blackie to play somewhere. A few hundred miles away from the Lotus village. A burly figure flashed across the void with a big hammer on his back. It was Gui Fu. Which direction should we move to? The Golden Sun Dynasty or the Swallow Cloud Dynasty? Gui Fu was thinking. He was in charge of planning the evacuation route. At this moment, an aged voice with a smile suddenly echoed in his ears. I didn't expect that the famous six-star blacksmith in the South Horizon region, Mr. Gui Fu, would hole up in this small place. Gui Fu's heart skipped a beat. In the void in front of him, a white-robed old man suddenly appeared with a playful smile on his face. Not good. Gui Fu's face was filled with shock and astonishment. He didn't expect the white-robed old man to find this place. The remnants of the Su family must be hiding here, a rat-like existence. But Mr. Ghost Axe, you are a six-star blacksmith after all. If you are sincere in joining my Heavenly God's Sword sect, it is not impossible for me to spare your life. The white-robed old man said with a calm expression. How did you know about this place? Ghost Axe said, his hands behind his back. He knew that he couldn't escape from such an existence. His hands swiped across his essence ring and he was about to take something out of it. How can you expect young master's methods? He has the Emperor's sword. Even if you hide to the ends of the earth, young master will be able to detect you. Furthermore, the white-robed old man narrowed his eyes and continued. You want to leak information in front of me, Mr. Ghost Axe, you're too naive. Boom. Without wasting any time, the white-robed old man stretched out a hand. Endless terrifying true chi condensed into a lifelike true chi giant hand in midair, directly grabbing the ghost axe. Gui Fu was a divine dwelling expert, but the white-robed elder was a heavenly palace venerable. Even if he was only at the first layer of the heavenly palace, his strength far surpassed that of a top divine dwelling expert. Cough. Ghost Axe's body was tightly grabbed by the true chi giant hand, a bone-chilling cracking sound rang out. With this grab, the bones in Ghost Axe's body were on the verge of shattering. Blood gushed out of his mouth. Ghost Axe, I am cherishing talent. If you are stubborn, then only death awaits you. The white-robed old man's expression darkened. Master's kindness to Ghost Axe is as heavy as a mountain. Ghost Axe is not that kind of ungrateful traitor. Heavenly God's Sword sect, you will pay the price. Being bound by the true chi giant hand, Ghost Axe could not even send a signal. His face was fierce, true chi surging all over his body. Want to self-destruct? The white-robed old man smiled contemptuously, his outstretched hand closing slightly. Puchi. Ghost Axe's internal organs were shattered, and all the bones in his body were crushed. The white-robed old man's figure flashed, and with a stretch of his hand, he took Ghost Axe's head. The headless corpse fell. The old man smiled slightly and swept away. One move, pinching a divine dwelling expert to death. Not long after, the white-robed old man came between two towering mountain peaks. Is it here? Illusory array, ha! The white-robed old man shook his head slightly. He stretched out his finger, and pointed. Boom! Endless true chi condensed into a true chi giant finger, and directly pointed at the illusory array. Without any resistance, the illusory array exploded in an instant. The hidden lotus village reflected in his eyes. Clearly on the run, but life is not bad. Looking at the lotus village with its birdsong and fragrant flowers, the white-robed old man's face revealed a sinister sneer. Heavens, what happened? The illusory array has been broken, who is it? The moment the illusory array was broken, the villagers outside Lotus Village all sensed it. What's going on? Qin Baijian, Mo Yunzi, and the Spring Cloud Pavilion Master, who were plowing the fields, were all shocked and bewildered. The three of them were imprisoned in Lotus Village, and could only plow the fields with the green ox every day. Their hearts had long been numb. In addition, there were 2 divine dwelling experts and so many heaven and earth spirit bridge experts. Qin Baijian and the other 2 had completely extinguished any thoughts of escape. But now, there seemed to be a great change in Lotus Village. Look, heavens, that's Ghost Axe. The Spring Cloud Pavilion Master subconsciously raised his head and saw the white-robed old man walking through the air, holding a bloody head in his hand. It was the divine dwelling expert, Ghost Axe. A divine dwelling expert was killed? Qin Baijian and the other 2's heads buzzed. The 3 of them were heaven and earth spirit bridge experts, and the divine dwelling stage was already an absolute expert to them. But at this moment, a divine dwelling expert had died at the hands of the white-robed old man. Who is that white-robed old man? We're saved, haha. Qin Baijian and the other 2 laughed. Not good, it's a sovereign. At this moment, the commotion outside the village alarmed Flower in the Waves, Feng Jiao, and the others. At first sight of the white-robed old man, Flower in the Waves' pupils abruptly shrank. Even a divine dwelling stage expert did not possess such power. The only answer was a venerable. Flower in the Waves, Feng Jiao, and the other heaven and earth spirit bridge experts hurriedly shouted, quickly inform the village chief and the others, I'll hold them back. Kill. Without any hesitation, Flower in the Waves attacked. Ants. The white-robed old man's expression was indifferent. In his eyes, a heaven and earth spirit bridge expert was no different from an ant. With a flick of his finger, his true chi condensed into a void blade and slashed at Flower in the Waves. Puchi. Flower in the Waves' body froze, and a head flew out. No, husband, I'll fight you to the death. Feng Jiao screamed shrilly, her eyes bloodshot. Puchi. Another slash of the sword, and Feng Jiao's head flew. What a waste of time. Divine sword art, 1,000 swords facing the sun. The white-robed old man seemed to find it troublesome to kill them one by one. He raised his hand, activating the vigorous true chi in his body. Terrifying true chi rolled and gathered, as if it had turned into a blazing sun. Immediately, the blazing sun exploded, and countless blazing rays of light turned into thousands of chi swords, sweeping in all directions. Puchi. 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 Like cutting rice, countless simple Lotus Village villagers were instantly killed by the chi swords. Ha, that's great. Senior, thank you for saving us. Seeing the Lotus Village villagers being slaughtered, Qin Baijian and the other 2 were overjoyed. They excitedly rushed towards the white-robed old man, wanting to thank him. However, Puchi. 3 chi swords flashed past, and Qin Baijian, Mo Yunzi, and the Spring Cloud Pavilion Master's heads flew. Why, Qin Baijian and the other 2's faces froze. They were not Lotus Village villagers, and they even wanted to thank the white-robed old man. But in the end, they died so unjustly. The 3's eyes were filled with endless resentment. The white-robed old man's expression was indifferent. When you stepped on a group of ants, would you care if a few of them were from the same group? Divine. Sword. Sect. At this moment, a cold voice filled with endless anger spread out. Oh, so it's Grandmaster Long Yuan. The white-robed old man narrowed his eyes and smiled faintly. Chapter 631. At this moment, the houses in Lotus Village had collapsed, and the ground was covered with countless holes. The white-robed old man had almost destroyed the entire Lotus Village with a single move. "You've gone too far." Looking at the hundreds of heads floating beside the white-robed old man, Ghost Axe, Flower in the Waves, Feng Jiao, and even Qin Baijian's heads were among them. Long Yuan's eyes were bloodshot, and his aura surged out. He had reached the 9th level of the Divine Palace realm. He was definitely at the peak of the Divine Palace realm. Above that was the Celestial Palace realm. Alchemist Long Yuan, you're famous in the Nantian region for your alchemy skills. Why don't you join the Heavenly God's Sword sect and hand over Su Jianshi and the others? Maybe the young master will be happy and give you the position of a deacon. As for Ghost Axe, I also want to spare his life, but he's too insensible, so I can only kill him. The white-robed old man said casually. But when Long Yuan heard this, the veins on his forehead bulged, and his eyes were bloodshot. An incomparable anger was about to engulf him. You people of the Heavenly God's Sword sect deserve to die. Long Yuan roared as the blood in his body burned, and his vitality was exhausted. At that time, he used the life-devouring secret technique like Su Moyan. Long Yuan's aura also soared under the support of the life-devouring secret technique. In the end, he reached the half-step supremacy realm. Oh, you reached the half-step supremacy realm with a secret technique. It seems that you're as insensible as Ghost Axe. Since that's the case, don't blame me for killing you and looking for the remaining Su family members. The white-robed old man's face was slightly cold. Even if he had reached the half-step supremacy realm, the old man was not afraid at all. After all, he was a true supremacy realm expert. Kill! Long Yuan attacked with all his might. At the same time, at the back mountain of Lotus Village, Su Qiqiao, Shui, Su Moyan, Su Jianshi, and Yiguchen were still in the cave. Su Moyan and the others sensed something and said, "What's going on? There seems to be some movement outside." Yiguchen's expression changed, and he felt a trace of unease. At that moment, a villager ran into the cave in a panic and hurriedly said, "Young miss, young master, leave quickly. Not good, a supremacy is attacking." "What?" Su Jianshi paled. "Venerable One, how is that possible? Even if the aura of the Emperor's sword leaked out, they still wouldn't be able to find us so quickly." Su Moyan's expression suddenly changed, becoming as gloomy as water. Yiguchen clenched his fists and frowned. He recalled the time when Su Jianshi had blocked a sword for him on the heavenly desolate plains. At that time, the seal seemed to have been broken for a short time. Could it be that Di Haotian had already vaguely sensed the aura of the human sovereign sword at that time? Yiguchen looked cold. If that was the case, wouldn't Yiguchen be responsible for the Venerable One's attack? After all, Su Jianshi had blocked the sword for him. That was why the sovereign sword seal had been revealed. Where are the village chief and the others? Su Moyan asked coldly. The village chief is trying his best to stall that venerable. Young master, young miss, you should leave quickly. We will do our best to stall that person. The villager gritted his teeth and said. Most of the people in Lotus Village were former servants of the Su family. Because the Su family had done them a favor, they were willing to sacrifice themselves for Su Jianshi and the others. No, I have to go find the village chief. I can't let you die for me. Su Jianshi shook her head frantically. Little sister, you stay here. I'll go. Su Moyan left in a flash. Su Jianshi wanted to follow, but Yiguchen blocked her path. Stay here with Shui and the others, Yiguchen said and followed Su Moyan. Why now? Blackie and the Divine Condor haven't returned yet. Yiguchen's expression was solemn. At the same time, 1,000 miles away from Lotus Village, in a valley, a furious roar came from a peak fifth-order demonic beast. Two shadows dashed out of the valley. Ha, great! We got a demonic beast egg. The divine condor held a sparkling egg with its wings and laughed happily. Blackie was also holding an egg. It opened its mouth and swallowed the eggshell. Stupid monkey, where did little you find you? You can take a beating so well that even a peak 5th-ranked demonic beast can't kill you? The divine condor glanced at Blackie. Squeak, squeak. Blackie raised its head and puffed out its chest, pounding its chest with both hands. It looked like it was very powerful. TSK, TSK. Then let's go find quasi-sage herbs, demonic beast eggs, and treasures to eat. The divine condor was about to say something when it suddenly felt a chill in its heart. What's going on? The divine condor's feathers bristled. Then, it turned its head in the direction of Lotus Village. Did something happen? Stupid monkey, let's go back to the village. The divine condor flapped its wings and grabbed Blackie with its claws. In Lotus Village, Long Yuan, who had broken through to the half-step honorable realm with the life-devouring secret technique, was fighting the white-robed elder. At the same time, some villagers from the Heaven and Earth Spirit Bridge joined forces to attack. They knew that they couldn't block the white-robed elder's attack, but they could only help Long Yuan share the pressure and slow down the white-robed elder. Long Yuan, you are so stupid. You put aside your bright future and insisted on protecting the remaining members of the Su family. You are courting death. The white-robed elder's expression was cold. He used the divine sword arts and slaughtered the villagers around him. Heads floated around the white-robed elder. Blood dripped everywhere. It was a ghastly sight. If you want me to die, you'll have to shed a layer of skin first. Long Yuan was fighting with all his might. He didn't care about his own life at all. Dragon returns to the sea. Long Yuan punched out with both palms. His vigorous genuine chi turned into a dragon-shaped shadow that pierced through the air. Divine Sword Arts, Emperor Sword Unification. The white-robed elder finally unsheathed his long sword. Holding the sword in his hand, his genuine chi spread to the heavens and the earth. A terrifying sword chi converged into a line and turned into a giant sword that slashed down fiercely. The giant sword slashed the shadow of the dragon. Puff! Long Yuan spat out another mouthful of blood. A hideous sword wound was cut from his shoulder to his abdomen. Blood gushed out violently. Su Moyan, who had rushed over, saw this scene and his face twisted. Village Chief Long Yuan, ah! Su Moyan's genuine chi surged as he was about to attack the white-robed elder. Young master, retreat. Long Yuan's expression changed when he saw this. Ha, finally, a Su family member has appeared. I'll capture you and force Su Jianshi out. The white-robed elder saw this and smiled. He casually flicked his finger and a vigorous sword chi burst out. Puff! Su Moyan was sent flying and fell to the ground. His body was covered in blood. If the white-robed elder hadn't held back, he could have killed Su Moyan with a flick of his finger. Su Moyan. Yi Guqin's expression changed drastically. Long Yuan saw this and attacked again. At the same time, he said, Yi Guqin, take them away. Yi Guqin gritted his teeth. He knew that the wisest thing to do now was to take Su Moyan and Su Jianshi away. However, could Yi Guqin just watch Long Yuan die without doing anything? The divine condor and the others should have sensed the change here. They're waiting for Blackie to come back, Yi Guqin thought. As long as Blackie came back, he could use the ancient god's jade archive to undo the seal. Then, all the danger would be resolved. But at this moment, Yi Guqin heard Su Qiqiao's voice. Sister Su, leave quickly. Don't come over. Yi Guqin frowned and turned his head to look. Su Jianshi looked like a withered green lotus under the burning buildings. This. No. No. Su Jianshi stood there in a daze as she looked around. The endless blood and cruelty caused her mind to go blank. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.